Hello and welcome to episode 268 of the Crate and Crowbar. It's the 16th of January 2019. My name is Chris Thurston and tonight I'm joined by Tom Francis.
Hello. And
Alex Wiltshire.
Hi.
Some bad news at the top of the running order. This is the final ever episode of the Crate and Crowbar. And in fact, we're going to have to delete all previous episodes of the Crate and Crowbar because Tom Francis has personally banned me from having opinions.
I don't think I did do that.
Well, with that in mind, I think this is a time for reflection for all of us. And maybe some humble kind of considerations of how we might talk about these kinds of issues in future to avoid these kinds of confusion.
And today wasn't really about Chris or Tom.
Yeah, in many ways, this is about us as a group of people in a room, as an industry, maybe even about podcasts as a medium. What it wasn't about is the thing I just said, which wasn't true.
Yeah.
That was
this reminds me of a recent news story in which it was announced that
purely coincidental, of course.
A company called Improbable said that Unity had changed their terms of service such that any games being developed with Improbable's cloud technology or that were currently live and using it were going to be brought down and in breach of Unity's new terms of service.
It was by a certain time as well, wasn't it? It was a very specific day and time.
Right. And so this was, the software is called Spatial OS, and it's basically your server's running in the cloud. And so, I don't know, it lets you do stuff you can't do on a local computer. And it integrates with like Unity and Unreal Engine and various other engines, but, its integration with Unity was never like an approved partnership. And, they posted a very dramatic blog post suggesting that it was the end of the world for anyone. Like, you know, if you spent 5 years working on a game with this technology, well, tough, you just can't release it. And then Unity came back and said, actually, developers are fine. You can still keep making games in this and you can still release them, but we've revoked the licenses of Improbable. And Improbable came back and said, well, without the licenses, we can't support anyone using it. And so we can't really let you use it because, you know, at any time it could break and we're legally not allowed to help you or do anything to it or update it or anything. But they, in between that, they did a very bizarre blog post in which you heard a rendition of from Chris there about it being a time for reflection and humility on both sides. And before anything had been resolved, it was like nothing, all that happened is they'd come out and then been sort of, some people have pointed out they might have overreacted and they just acted like it was all over and it was like, oh, well, it's time for everyone to really learn a lesson and move on.
And yeah, ultimately it wasn't really about us or Unity. It was about other things.
Yeah, it had the feeling of like a TV mid-season finale where they don't know if they're going to get renewed. You know, that kind of like, well, I guess in the end, this was all about the friends we made
along the way.
The EULA, you know?
Some good has come of it because Unity just yesterday or today, posted another update on it where they have reevaluated their terms of service in light of, you know, because it was a big controversy. When only Improbable's post was up, it was a massive anti-Unity hate wave on Twitter. It was absolute like everyone stop using Unity because they have this evil terms of service and anything you do might become illegal at any moment. And even after you release your game, they might retroactively change the terms of service so that you're now illegal. And then, that settled down and Unity said, no, don't worry about it for developers. But now they've gone further and reevaluated the terms of service and extended it so that it actually, they still don't approve of Improbable's thing, but they changed the terms of service to say you can use stuff that we don't approve of. We just can't give you any support for it. And also another, thing, which actually the only thing that really had me worried was, the idea that Unity, if they change the terms of service in future, can invalidate something that was fine when you made it. You know, I made it in Unity 2017 and, it was in accordance with the terms of service then. And then in 2027, they changed their terms of service and that invalidates what I did. That was technically true until now. And they've now said officially that, you know, if you use Unity 2017, then you only need to abide by the 2017 terms of service. So even if we change it in future to something you hate that's totally, bad for you, you're still safe.
But it's like, that is like classic terms of service horror show stuff because a lot of terms of service don't actually hold up in courts of law, you know, because it would be insane if if you signed, if you agreed to a terms of service by using Unity in 2017, right? And then you stop using Unity, obviously, surely, like, you would never be bound to the rules of an updated terms of service that you never agreed to in 2019. So, but then, but it's the uncertainty, like, and watching some developers, particularly Spilt Milk, who make a shooter game called Lazarus, or in the middle of developing it, sort of were quite vociferous about the fact that this game they've been working on for 2 or 3 years is suddenly, like, as far as they were concerned, for a few hours at least, was dead, like, straight off the bat because of shenanigans at some level, and it's horrifying. I think it centered on the idea that you weren't, like, the terms of service weren't very clear, but that you couldn't run an instance of Unity on a server. It had to be on the player's machine. I think that was what. No,
you can run a server, but your server has to be running Windows or Linux or Mac or one of the supported operating systems. And the problem with Improbable's thing is their cloud thing is so, like, cloudy. It's not even any recognized OS. I think that's the term for it. I mean, it's called Spatial OS.
It's called Spatial
OS.
It is
an operating system.
That's the operating system.
And that means Unity just had, if they haven't, they do support some cloud platforms, but when they do, it's because they have a partnership with those people and they work with them to make sure that the Unity will always work with that, and any updates they do to Unity aren't going to break it on that particular platform. And that's obviously a bunch of work, and they have not been able to come to an agreement with Improbable. To hear Unity tell it, Improbable are like bad actors who are,
forcing hands and all that kind of thing.
Like, breaching the terms and, refusing to work with them. And here in Improbable tell it, they did everything they possibly could and gave them all the information they possibly could, and they were told they were fine until December, and then suddenly they were told they weren't. So who knows where the truth lies. But yeah, so it's a weird, you can sort of see both sides of it. In that, I mean, I don't know what Improbable told when, but it's kind of crazy to, have the status of your service be changed, and they literally had their licenses revoked, whatever else was said. They were allowed to keep working in Unity until December, and then suddenly they literally were prevented from legally using Unity. And then on the Unity side of it, you can see why they can't just unilaterally say, yes, you can run your Unity game on any random shit we don't know anything about, and we're obliged to help you if it fucks up.
I was amused by the speed at which Epic.
I was going to mention Epic.
Gleefully ran in and went, we saw an opportunity.
So, I mean, which may or may not be what happened. Like, this is the thing. It proceeded with such speed and efficiency, this drama, really. Because I would say that now, a week later, Cooler Heads do feel like they've prevailed somewhat, particularly with that new Unity post. When Epic sort of arrived on the scene a day afterwards to announce that, I think they were extending a grant or a bursary system rather than introducing one, but essentially like a funding system, to encourage or allow developers affected by these, in collaboration with Improbable, that they would support developers financially in order to change to Unreal Engine, if they now needed to, leave Unity, which is opportunistic, obviously, but it also ties this little moment in time together with the broader thing that's been happening over the last 3 months, which is the sort of the store wars, or whatever you want to call it, the rise of Epic Store as a political competitor to Steam, if not a practical one, or, at some point in that continuum and of that discussion, and the broader question of, like, which one of these companies is evil, which is what
the internet must decide.
The internet must decide now. Whereas the answer may well just be, it's the system. But
it's interesting because also, the Epic Store announcement was freakishly fast after Valve sort of shot themselves in the foot with the discount for the richest 1% thing. And that at the time I was thinking, God, did they suddenly push this? Like, obviously they're planning to announce it eventually, but did they rush it to get it out on time? And then this announcement was crazy fast after the Improbable thing.
So they're either extremely quick or psychic.
I can imagine, actually, I don't know what their management is exactly. I know Tim Sweeney is like, he's
just Tim
person
Sweeney,
I know.
like having.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, if
concerns.
he has absolute power of the company and cares passionately about this stuff, he probably can just, read the news in the morning and say, okay, by 12
Well,
noon,
it'll
I
be
want to
Mark
post
Rain.
about
This is what exactly it'll be. It'll be Mark Rain, and he's in front of the internet all the time, and he sort of goes, oh, he sees another thing. Oh, this is what he does at conferences, by the way. Sits down the front. Oh, and then, what is it, Mark? Says Tim Sweeney, and he's, oh, look at this. And then Tim Sweeney figures out what to do, and then it's done, like in an hour.
This episode is rich with dramatic reenactments.
Yeah, it's like 999. I think the thing I was going to say is it's like, I don't know. It felt very stagey. Talking theatre, this whole moment last week felt very stagey. It felt like things proceeded too quickly, without enough time. Like, I'm now someone who works in comms, among other things. And, obviously different companies move at different speeds, as you've demonstrated, Alex. But there is a degree to which sort of responses, take time to process. And you can certainly say that the second improbable post had the air of something that hadn't been especially planned, because it didn't make any sense at all. Which, in a sense, even though it's the easiest thing to make fun of,
it was like sort of, we've bitten off something a little bit more than we can chew.
Because it looked like a company being put on the spot.
Yeah.
And in a way they didn't expect. And ultimately, even though it's easy to make fun of, it's quite, emotionally resonant with a very particular feeling of like, I think if we just want to call calm down, we'll find that everyone was a little bit wrong, weren't we? Yeah, I think. And that had more sort of verisimilitude to it than the sort of maybe that initial, announcement and its, ringing of the doom bell, followed by the announcement of that bursary program the following day. That was like, I think, people in that position need to be aware of neatness and the way it can play against you. And the fact that, ultimately, as much as Twitter or whatever platform thrives on drama, people don't like being shocked into, like a factional sort of industry scrap. I think people might.
I don't know. Yeah. People did kind of enjoy it, I think. But everyone loves to get angry. Everyone loves to get angry with Unity.
There was definitely some anti-Epic sentiment as a result of their thing.
There was, yeah, that's true as well.
But then again, you can accuse people of opportunism, but it is, and this doesn't excuse it being a competitive sort of marketplace environment, but that is the system that, for better or worse, was constructed to adjudicate these kinds of things. And sometimes you got to live with the consequence. Well, maybe you don't have to live. Yeah, actually, the truth is you don't have to live with the consequences of that. But that change is often beyond the, imagination of the industry, I would argue. Is there anything else to say about that whole mess, really?
I think we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, because it does seem to have calmed down remarkably quickly as well. There was some other big news last week.
What
was it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Activision.
I forgot.
Activision and Bungie.
Oh, right. I read that. Okay, well, actually, go ahead.
I'd like to get your impression.
As someone who doesn't play the game or care.
I need you to dramatize this for me.
Well, so I was sitting in my chair.
You're Luke Smith. I'm Activision.
And Tim Sweeney burst in. Like, did you hear the news about Destiny? And the news was the Destiny, Bungie now, own Destiny and it doesn't have a publisher anymore. And I sat there thinking, who is the publisher of Destiny? I literally didn't know it didn't already belong to them. So I'm not the person to talk about this news.
No, it's strange. Kind of, it came as a surprise, I suppose, because it seems to come out of the blue, but only because, I don't know, Destiny's just been ticking over. Like Bungie's always been a very independently minded studio, like with the benefit of success. They've made very successful games and, they've managed to construct a story and a legend around the studio, which has basically been about them being fucked over by big companies. Basically Microsoft, like only Microsoft really. where, and fucked over being a strong term. Like it's an aura of it. So there are all these stories about them making Halo 2 too fast because that's what they were ordered to do. And it was really bad, crunch time all the way through it. And that was why the single player mode.
They're always the Rebel Alliance, never the Empire.
Exactly. And yet all of their games have been benefited profoundly by the fact that they were under the umbrella of large companies. All of what Halo was about, the online, this was the game that helped form and create online gaming.
It was the Xbox
consoles.
Live game, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And while Microsoft benefited from the fact that was the touch paper and the thing that provided the initial form for, Xbox Live, Bungie massively, profited from the fact that it had a massively stable, online environment in which to work. It's hand in hand. Anyway, they made Destiny. They wanted to make a huge, epic, hugely expensive game to make. And only a large company like Activision was going to be able to pay for it. And so they got into bed with Activision. And honestly, from the outside, that relationship's been pretty good. And a lot of the missteps, I suppose there's been a lot of argument about some of the, DLC for money stuff within the game has been criticized. But
the earliest criticisms of Destiny had nothing to do with that.
Exactly.
Like the earliest criticisms of Destiny were all to do with narrative stuff, which, there's been good reporting on why they were limited in what they could do with their engine, for example, how long it took them to render changes to any level geometry, for example, is a really simple thing that held them back when updating the game. It wasn't until tail end of Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 that they started getting in trouble for what people would think of as the big publisher additions, like a microtransaction store.
Yeah.
And,
but even then, it was almost exclusive, very, very cosmetic and very hardcore affecting, not the kind of things that propel the game to a broader kind of success.
Yeah. Like I think, it's an interesting comparison to draw the Halo 2 to Destiny 2 thing. Both, probably of the two games Bungie have made that have been considered to be failures, even though I don't think you can really call either of them failures. Those are the two, and the twos. The twos are the two, that tooted it. And, in both cases, you're right. Bungie have in some cases been able to go like, it's kind of Microsoft, or no, it's kind of Activision. I don't think they have necessarily done that in this case, and I don't think they'd ever be.
There hasn't been the sense of like pointing fingers, but you look at the history and you kind of, and like, if you want to go independent with the game that you made with the company that you're, going for independent from, well,
I do wonder how this came about. Like, I wonder what set of circumstances need to come about that allow.
There's Forsaken, which is the most recent major patch to the game, or like new content, has not attracted back the game to the players who have left Destiny 2 over the course of its life so far, which is, when did it come out? The year before last?
It came out last. No, yes, it came out in 2017.
That's right,
the year before last.
So, I think compared to Destiny 1, the player base dropped quite quickly compared to Destiny 1. And Forsaken, while being a comprehensive overhaul of all the important stuff about the game, and I'd argue has made it really fucking good.
Yeah.
It just hasn't really claimed those players back. And that's been talked about and in investor calls and that sort of thing, over the past few months. But, maybe that is part of why Activision would be okay to relinquish it.
Yeah. It was definitely not news I was expecting, if that makes sense. Like, as Destiny starts to hopefully find its feet, we can probably talk about that in a minute, because I know it's what you've been playing. And also, it was your game of the year.
It was, yeah. So I thought I'd play the game of the year after.
In 2019. Yeah. Tom, did you want to mention a Valve thing that you've enjoyed? Just while we're ticking off the big company news.
So Valve did an end of year post in which they mentioned, just recapped all the things they changed about Steam, specifically in the last year. And then they did a little sort of coming soon thing about what they hope to do next. And one of the things was to extend their trust system and some anti-cheat stuff from their own games to just offering that as a service that other developers can have in their games. And someone in the comments of that said, trust is great. You should watch this talk, about it. And I did. And it was absolutely fascinating. It was, about Valve Anti-Cheat. It actually wasn't primarily about the trust system. The trust system is a thing where, the, system tries to rate players based on how likely they are to cheat. So it doesn't track whether they have cheated or not. This particular system doesn't. Cause if they can detect that for sure, they ban you. But, it looks at things like, do you have, for example, and this is a real case, 49 other accounts, all of which have been VAC banned? If you do, we think this account is likely to cheat at some point.
Right.
And that gives you a low trust rating. And what it's used for is matchmaking. So people with low trust ratings get in games together,
each other,
and people with very high trust ratings who have shown no inclination to cheat all get to play with each other, and that means that they see cheaters less. And so the people who aren't cheating see cheaters less. And it completely sucks for a few people who are doing something that makes them look suspicious but aren't cheaters, and they just endlessly play against cheaters. But their system is very, very conservative. It only starts to flag you as suspicious if you really do have a lot of evidence against you. And this talk is actually about how they use deep learning to identify cheaters. Like every part of it was fascinating. There's like 3 or 4 things, big things that I didn't know that were fascinating. And, so the fact that they'd use deep learning for this at all, like this is like a talk from a year ago. So it was already up and running and working long enough for them to talk about it back then. And I think I didn't really know that deep learning was sort of being used for like this many practical purposes, like in live things. I thought like Google uses it to detect dogs. And other than that, it's more like experimental area of research. So that's fascinating. But then also, it doesn't just, the system is not that they have some algorithm that can detect cheating and then it just bans you. They don't have enough confidence in it for that. It always has to be a player jury that convicts you of cheating. I didn't know this either. Like there is a system called Overwatch, weirdly, in Counter-Strike Go. Did I mention this is Counter-Strike Go? This is all about Counter-Strike Go.
Because this is what Counter-Strike Go is for, is figuring out how to stop cheating.
Yeah, their cheating problem was enormous when they started on this stuff. It was just all anyone ever talked about with Counter-Strike. And they have this totally separately from the AI thing. I think they had this before they even dabbled in the AI side of things. Overwatch, which is a jury system where if you are flagged for cheating, like someone accuses you of cheating or whatever, that gets sent to a player jury, and it's not like a bunch of people who get together and talk about it. It's individually, many different players are sent the replay and they watch it and they see, does this look like this guy's cheating? I assume they watch it from the accused cheater's perspective, so you can kind of see where they're looking and stuff like that. Because obviously if they're not looking anywhere near a point that somebody pops up, and then as soon as that person pops up, their view snaps to their head instantly and shoots them, it's probably more than just good reactions. Like, you have a lot of players look at it so that you only actually convict them cheating if they almost all agree. So it seems like a pretty solid system. It's, for example, what the criminal justice system uses. Don't know if you're aware of that. Fun fact about the word jury.
The criminal justice system where you see the crime from the point of view of the person who did it.
That's why it's so flawless. Everyone gets to see the murderer murder the person, and then they're like, well, yeah, clearly, I saw that.
Does it have a little kind of, like, sort of counter-terrorist kind of character with a kind of judges which pop up, like a cartoon guy.
They're like floating around, like their legs dangling as they observe from above.
What do you think? Let's play a game.
The thing that's really difficult about it is it's all in black and green. You don't know what anyone's called.
What is that a reference?
That's Oberdin. Oh, shit. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, because I played it in brown and...
Oh, you did? You said it to Commodore or whatever.
Yeah.
So the jury system is what actually convicts people, but deep learning is, you've probably heard of this and or machine learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, and it specifically is about you give it a shitload of data and you give a shitload of outputs from that data, and deep learning will figure out what the process was that got those outputs from that input. And so the system for flagging stuff, just players flagging suspected cheaters, that is not a set that you could feed into deep learning because, the input is like infinite. It's all CSGO games ever, forever. And the output is uncertain. They got flagged, but we don't know if they got convicted. And so instead they took the input as all the stuff that was flagged and the output was all the stuff that got convicted. Or I guess probably all of the results, positive or negative, and fed all of that into the deep learner, which just looks for patterns. And the
Dean Learner. Sorry.
The Dean learner then, it just gets fed a replay. And in fact, it doesn't even get the whole replay. It just gets shown. They want to detect aimbots was their first target. They're going to extend it to more stuff, but the easiest thing they thought to detect would be aimbots because that is where the cheat program moves your aim. And so it's a thing that you can sort of, seems ripe for pattern recognition, which is what deep learning is really good at. And so they feed it, the information about everything the player was doing a quarter of a second before the shot and half a second after the shot, or the other way around,
right.
Half a second before and a quarter of a second after. And it's just like where they were looking, the yaw of their viewpoint and all that stuff, for every shot they took in all of their games. Or maybe it's just the game that was flagged. And so that could be like a huge number of shots if they were using like an M60 or something and spraying at everybody. It could be a massive amount of data. But that's all it looks at. And it is trained by giving it, here are all the cases that were flagged, and then here are all the cases that were convicted. Look for what the common thing is in the ones that were convicted and figure out a way of recognizing that in future cases. And when humans flag these matches and they go to a jury, about 30% of them end up getting convicted. So about 70% of the time, the jury is also is told, that they should only convict if it is beyond a reasonable doubt. It really is copied from the real justice system. So they're told, even if you're like 80% sure this is a cheater, say they're innocent. It's only if you're absolutely sure that there's no way this person could be doing this, conventionally. And about 30% of the time, the jury ends up convicting a flagged clip that was flagged by humans. The ones that the, deep learning system ended up flagging, when sent to a jury were convicted like 95% of the time.
Oh, wow.
So it's incredibly good, like much better at humans, than humans at spotting it. Or I suppose the other way to look at it is that it has no other motive for submitting it other than it really does think there's a cheater there, whereas humans have all kinds of mixed up
motives.
motives.
The stat you need there is how many things get submitted by both, right? Like if the AI only submits 30% of the number of total submissions to the jury that humans do, and those 30% of those that go through, it's just better at identifying the same ones.
Yeah. Well, they had a sort of overall conviction rate, that they, they had a weird system where like, a weird result where the jury thing was in beta and, it was going really well. And so they opened up to the public thinking, great, if we have 10 times more people doing this, we'll catch 10 times more cheaters. And the conviction rate just leveled out, just went completely flat. And so they basically hit the limit of like what, cheaters players can detect, I guess. And then when they introduced the deep learning system, the conviction rate went up again because it could detect a bunch of stuff that the humans couldn't.
It's really interesting because there's definitely a Black Mirror episode in this. Exactly one Black Mirror episode.
One of the questions that they got at the end of the talk was, what if cheaters start using deep learning to figure out better ways to avoid this? And, the Valve guy, whose name I've forgotten, I'm afraid, said, well, deep learning, it actually, the whole sophisticated thing about like, how do you write functions and learning algorithms to train on this data, the algorithm, in practice ends up being almost irrelevant. It's just how much data you have. If you have twice as much data as that guy, it doesn't matter how good his algorithm is, you'll get a better deep learning, or learner, I think they call it, the thing that actually, figures this out. And obviously Valve just have way more data than any cheater is ever going to be able to get.
But isn't also like, there's a sort of hard limit to, like an aimbot, if you want it to hit what you want to shoot at, it's going to have to move like your view, like in this unnatural way. Like, I don't know quite how you disguise that, or like, I'm sure there are ways. You could
add loads of noise. You could figure out how to, you could get like an AI that also shoots for you arbitrarily at different times in ways that the other AI aren't good at picking up. So like it means that
dark patterns kind of thing.
So it's like, you know, and if someone with an aimbot stops looking like someone whose view snaps to you immediately. It looks like someone who's shooting like in a kind of jazz way, like 100% of the time. But like in a jazz way, they hit all the beats they need to. You know what I mean?
Special cadence
like
of
a
shooting,
free-form jazz.
Deep learning just goes mental on.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the other amazing thing about this is that, they bought like a new server farm basically with, they needed 3,500 cores to process all this data, but that is just for reading in the replays and basically compiling the data.
So they could rent it.
All of that complex processing where you take all of the data and figure out what the algorithm is that magically detects cheaters, that takes 6 hours at the moment, and they're going to upgrade the hardware they run that on. They just run that on like a GeForce 1080, like under their desk. And once they upgrade that hardware, it's going to be like 10 minutes to retrain the thing. So if there's a new trend in cheating and stuff, as long as the jury have seen it and they've convicted, then it can learn from that super fast.
Terrifying. If you are cheating
profiling,
or committing a crime in 2040.
Actually, what's interesting in terms of like how cheats could get around it is this is aimbots, and like you say, there's kind of a hard limit on how clever you can be with an aimbot. But the other most common type of hack is a wall hack, where you can see through walls. It doesn't help your aim, but you know this guy's going to come around the corner. Yeah. And I can imagine there being a real like mind game to be played as the cheater to like, okay, I know he's coming around the corner. I'm not going to look at where he is, obviously. I'm also not even going to look at where he's going to be just yet, but,
there must be like,
well, that means
God, that'd be really fascinating.
The sheer skill of actually playing in a kind of non-detectable way.
You'd almost
like hats off.
You can have the win, well done.
But it's like there must be a relationship good shooter players have with corners, right? Like how much time do you spend? Because like pre-shooting corners is a thing in shooters, right? So like people must end up looking at corners a lot of the time as they're running around, regardless of whether they or not they know that someone's about to run around the corner. Yeah. So it would be really hard to detect. Like, did you know there was someone about to run around the corner, or are you just looking at the corner because that is a sensible thing to do?
I remember when I played Quake 3 Arena a lot, or I think it was Arena. You just kind of, if it's like one other player on a 1v1 map, like a really small map, but just a few places where like the red armor is and where the rocket launcher is and where the railgun is, I just got in the habit of just like, every time I'm here, I fire a rocket at that corridor. I don't see anyone there. I have no reason to think anyone's going to come here, but usually around this time, someone's just got the red armor and they're coming that direction, and then you often get a kill out of that. And you look like the biggest cheater in the world. Yeah, because there's no way you could have known.
Like, I'm not to skip ahead of what I've been playing, because I want to return to Alex and Destiny, but, I've been playing a lot of Battlefield 5, and a guy accused me of cheating the other day because I fired a little medic submachine gun at him from very, very far away and got a headshot and a sniper achievement, which is very unlikely, but it's just because you fire an automatic weapon far away. Sometime it hit thing, man die. But he was in the chat like, yeah, that's never going to happen. GG, effing cheater, quits. And it's like, you know, there's a law of averages that says that just don't happen. Like, you fire a thing.
Did he have a jury of his peers with him?
He did, yeah. Like, you were massively convicted.
Yeah.
You've gone into the deep learning machine.
I got really flattered in Rocket League once, where I was having a good game and I got a good goal, and the guy said, fucking bots. And I was like, yes, this is amazing. He thinks I'm a bot. That's fantastic. And then someone pointed out to me that they were looking at the scoreboard, and they pointed out to me that the rest of his team were all bots because they'd all quit. He's pissed off with the shitty bots on his team, not that I'm so good I must be a bot.
Alex, so you gave Destiny your Game of the Year.
I was playing it towards the end of the year. Yeah. But then I got really hooked over Christmas.
So that's some big updates, didn't it?
Yeah, so there's an update with I don't even know what it's called, because I'm too low level.
Oh, I see.
I can't see the name of the update.
Oh no.
It just appears like question marks, like in an MMO.
Just skulls.
Oh, what's it called?
It's Black Foundry?
Black Foundry, or something like that. There's like underneath Forge. the main kind of social area called the Tower. There is a new area being opened up where there's a robot what makes guns, and then you have to get a frame for a gun and then go out and shoot things and then forge it in these special areas. And it's basically the route into like a horde mode, which has been opened up.
Right.
But you have to be a certain level to get to it. Which would annoy me that I can't play this new mode that's been popped into it. But there is so much to do. And especially when you're low level and you have to catch up. So right now I am light level 590.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad at all. But the current cap is 650, I think. 600 and something anyway. And to forge a weapon in this new DLC, I need to be 620 really. So and I'm not really gaining light levels, power levels more than 2 or 3 a night now. And so like, I've just been on this I've been on this mountain for a long time now. And I'm getting the feeling that by the time I'm at the right level, they're going to release another bit of DLC and I'm going to have to,
that's the trick. You're always racing them.
But there's shitloads to do. Like, there are so many sources of the things that you need to increase your light level. So just to explain how it all works, because it's kind of like a slightly weird leveling system where, everybody's level is displayed for all to see, but it's most used somewhere in the world because that'll be 50, which is the level cap. And that only really makes any sense if you've only just started playing the game and you're playing through all the story stuff.
Yeah.
Like once you're at 50, you're meant to be in the end game stuff, but that is, you have just started playing the game by the time you're at 50 fundamentally. From then on, your level is defined by your power level, and your power level is defined by your gear. So, as you run around and you shoot stuff and you do quests and you do bounties and you do all the other things that, you can shoot people and win games, whatever. Items drop, gear drops, guns and clothing, and they're all given a light level, and, your light power level is the average of your gear's light level.
So that can go down if you take something off.
So if you take stuff off to use a favored gun, for instance, your power level
it's like down. A gear score, basically.
Yeah. And it does affect your damage output and your kind of damage mitigation.
On top of what the gear stats is.
On top of the gear stats.
Yeah, it has a kind of like, it is a level as well. It has a kind of level scaling relationship.
So if you go into an area where there are high level things and it's not really like an MMO where like there is a defined area. There are certain activities that you'll do which you're just not capable of. You will not be able to do any damage in that kind of level scaling kind of way. But it's, you kind of know when that happens and it doesn't really impinge on you that much other than there are parts of the game you can't get to. So for instance, the raids, they are very specifically, you need to be like level such and such to get through there, and you will be fucked if you try to do it. In fact, you may not be able to.
You can't below, so there's always a threshold. So there's a threshold where you can try and it's hard, and then because it tells you, it says like the average light level needs to be about 580 for this, but you can try it at 560, and if you're amazing, maybe you'll pull it off. Yeah. And then you can also, I quite like the system because it sometimes means that like, it's sometimes good to wait and do the raids when you're 600, when the next expansion's coming out, and then you can go back and do them on easy and just see them, and it's kind of nice. Yeah, no, and I think it fundamentally, that basic setup fundamentally works, and and there's always loads of stuff to do, and there are prescribed ways of getting the gear that you want. After you get to a certain power level, the gear that drops most commonly for you will always be a percentage lower than your current light level, meaning that it's junk, more or less. The reason it's not quite junk is that when gear drops, it's given a bunch of random stats like bonuses and sort of buffs and things like that, or effects that increase your super regeneration, or that might be, there's a Masterwork system where where a certain stat is buffed and you can put resources into leveling that up over time, and those resources are very expensive. So if something drops at level 4 or 5, then that's a good piece of gear because it means that it's not going to cost so much to get up. You can also feed gear to other gear.
And you can feed gear into other gear to increase its light level, but only
As in, you can take the light
high.
level from one thing and apply it to another thing of the same type.
Yeah.
So if you get like a shotgun that's really high light level, but you don't like anything about its handling, you can feed it to a hungry lower level shotgun.
But yeah, and but you won't. But the fact is that because this stuff that's dropping is lower than your level, the feeding doesn't really work because you're going to want stuff at your level, not the lower level. So this isn't quite as complicated as it sounds.
Yeah, we've managed to make it sound very complicated.
But it's but it means that there are very specific activities you can do which drop powerful gear. It's like the linguistic sort of structures, they're just running out of words. As the power and the numbers go up, they're running out of words to describe the extra level of bullshit you have to do.
Have they used the word epic yet?
No, there aren't any.
No, because legendary exotic is the word for epic. Which just means pineapple flavored. Everyone knows that.
But these activities are all fun. Like they're really good. So once a day you can play Gambit, and that will guaranteed drop you a piece of gear which will be like just a few light levels like above what your current light level. So that will guaranteed you will slightly increase your overall thing. You don't know what that gear is going to be, and maybe it's going to be a piece of shit, but you can feed it into other stuff. It's never a waste. So you play Gambit, and Gambit is fucking awesome. It really is. Like, we've talked about Gambit.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we definitely have.
So it's still fun. You can play some Crucible, play 1 or 3 games of Crucible. Bam, there's another piece. You can go and do some bounties, and like you do enough bounties in a week, you get another thing. Yeah.
It's been like this since Forsaken came out.
There are huge areas like the kind of the large kind of planetary areas that you can run around in. They are rich with weird and sort of chains events based stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
And there are quests to get new guns, that are multi kind of stage, and you have to shoot such and such number of things with a certain gun, or you have to find these special caches of stuff around the levels, and they are hidden in places I didn't know you could get to. The current Forsaken, the new area that was, or the second new area,
the Dreaming City.
Forsaken, the Dreaming City, is a place that is, like Chris has already described it, but like it's really very, very beautiful, and it is incredibly complicated place to explore. There's areas that I didn't even know existed, I keep coming across. There are huge numbers of secrets. There's a sort of an item that you can take which allows you to see these portals that are hidden in the environment that you can go through that you would never see, and there are loads of other hidden things, huge amounts of fiction and stuff.
And the whole thing progresses through time every 4 weeks, and then goes backwards in time, but certain elements of it remain persistent, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Like I've always had a bit of a thing for good MMO zone design and interesting MMO storytelling design, and it's both.
Like, it really does.
That's why I'll always forgive Bungie their occasional dalliances with blaming the man upstairs for their problems, because when they get it right, it's
it's intensely rewarding whether you want to absorb that kind of stuff or you just want to play. There's so much to do. But one of the fascinating tensions in it is, though, that emerges from all this constant need to push that number up, is that I mentioned earlier just now the idea of masterworking, where you can put expensive resources into leveling up your gear, and once you've got to the maximum point, so a weapon masterworks up to level 10, and clothes, helmets and stuff, it masterworks up to 5. And nobody does it. I don't do it.
No one does it.
Because, you're constantly changing your gear. Like you have to, because there's always something else there's a slightly higher level, to feed gear into another to buff the thing that you wanted to wear. It costs the same resources that it does to masterwork, and they are in short supply, and you just don't keep the thing. I am wearing the worst clothes at the moment. I look awful. Like I'm wearing an exotic chest plate, which is like a,
full of pineapples.
Yeah. All of the rarities.
Just look like one big pineapple. Comes with a headpiece.
The rarities are Ready salted. Apple.
Hedgehog.
Blueberry. Blueberry. What's the purple flavor?
Blueberry.
What does purple taste like?
Blueberry does.
Yeah, but blue is blueberry. Sure.
Oh,
Blackberry.
Aubergine. Aubergine and pineapple. You know, the 5 rarities.
And then it's just mishmash of horrible things. I'm a hunter, and you
can end up really looking terrible.
Yeah, I look really bad at the moment. But it
Does it not have like a transmogrifier thing?
No, it doesn't. No.
No, I really don't like transmogrifier systems. Personally, I'm against them.
It feels a bit of a cheat, transmogrify. Like, it feels that when you've got your special kit, like, you don't really...
It detaches something essential from, like, because for all of this talk about loot systems and how they work as retention and why they're fun and everything else, it's like, they always exist in tension with your suspension of disbelief. And like good, like RPG design allows you to believe that something of the world remains real, even as you become a magic person that like swaps their pants out once per adventure. Which makes it sound much sexier than it actually is. Like this is the issue that RPGs face, is that they're partly games about min-maxing numbers and partly about being a character. And, I've always had a chip on my shoulder about, if you think about how gear is traditionally handled in like, either classical storytelling or even fantasy literature now, it has nothing to do with the way gear is handled in games with the exact same fictional setup in video games. The archetypal fantasy story is someone is given a magic sword at the beginning of the story and discovers what it is or how it works as the story progresses. Like, Frodo isn't given Sting and then is like, oh, fuck you, Sting. I found Iron Sting +1. Like, that is...
Or just like broadsword of flame, just like kind of boring but really good items. This thing has this deep personal significance. It looks awesome. It's got a custom model and everything, but this thing's just better, and it's just a normal flame imbued sword.
And for me, like Transmog is the last step in completely destroying that, because at that point you've literally said, all right, player, you've got this pile of numbers and you've got these visual assets. Just pick whichever ones you like. We don't care. Whereas like something for me of like, I have to wear this stupid looking cape because I need its stats right now. At the very least, incorporates the idea that gear has power into the world, even if it's dumb. Like, it's dumb that I haven't played Destiny as meticulously as I used to, but in Destiny 1 particularly, like, I took screenshots of my character at the end of the life cycle of every expansion. Yeah. When the next one was the next day, because like,
finally perfected it.
I look pristine now. Like, I know what this character looks like. I have the comic book version of this character where if you had to draw this character as part of a story, this is what they would look like. And tomorrow, I'm going to look like a clown because like I'm going to pick up like bright red shoes that I need because they're better than the stuff I raided for and so on.
I would love a Transmogrify system where I've got this ugly, brilliant item and I'm allowed to like chip bits off it and repaint it. But every time I do it loses a bit of its value. Like it loses one of its stats. I chip this gem off the shoulder and now it doesn't give me a strength bonus.
You lose your deposit.
Oh yeah, you can't sell it if you just...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being able to like paint your stuff would be great. Or like,
Well, you voided the warranty, so
exactly.
On your head be it.
Yeah, you jailbroke.
Hope you like it now.
But in Destiny 2, there are just so many things that you're looking for in any
Actually, sorry, that's
item.
what Soulbinding is in World of Warcraft, right? It's voiding the warranty.
Oh, yeah.
That's
we should bring that into real life, I think. Like, if you jailbreak your iPhone, it's soulbound now. No one else can use it.
That, again,
that's what the man wants you, though.
You got yourself a Black Mirror episode there as well, Tom. You've said the magic word, which is this thing from a computer, right?
Yeah.
What
is it bad in the real world?
What if it was bad in the real world?
What if warranties but too much?
Yeah, exactly. Warranties, you got to regulate.
But there are so many things you're looking for in any item, like the little stat buffs, the little special effects, like the fact that every third bullet makes an explosion and like, oh, that's so good. But then, it's a horrible color and like, it's also way below my level and I can't be bothered to update.
Do you ever pick stuff on aesthetics that's worse than your current gear?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah. But the thing is
all the time.
Yeah. But But I must admit, that moment where a nice cape drops and it's a big number, like you think, oh my God. And like, that your emotion isn't, the fact that your emotion isn't purely about the number, that there is a human aspect to it too. Like that is extra satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the masterworking system, I like the fact that you have to be really dedicated to care about some clothes in order to have masterworked them all up, and there are, the benefits to them. Might be worth it. They get a nice little orange bit around the square.
I think the system is pretty much there for people who do max out all the content in a given expansion or update very quickly.
It definitely is for that group of people.
Rather than people who are still on the treadmill. Because the treadmill's pretty long, right? They keep you
really long. And it's definitely World of Warcraft circa 2009 long, 2008 long, where, when they upped the level cap from 70 to 75, whatever it was.
This is a deep cut, Alex. This is going right for the heart.
It was like that 5 levels. I remember taking fucking shit long. It was really long time, considering it was only 5 levels. And that's the feel that I'm getting from Destiny, which is interesting because I think a lot of games that involve leveling have sped up at least the accrual of numbers,
Yeah, they give you something, even if they don't give you much.
Yeah. There's some, yeah, so, but it's just nice stuff.
What a conclusion.
I don't know who I was talking to recently, but I said, don't worry about doing conclusions on things. It never helps. I've been playing 2 games that both have a relationship with this, that are both shooters and are both completely different. If you want to talk about them.
Yeah.
Because I've been playing Battlefield 5 and Escape from Tarkov.
Best Friend 5
and Escape from Tarkov. So, I don't know how so Battlefield 5 I've been playing quite a bit. I bought it over Christmas and it was, as I got back to my computer in the kind of the break, it's one of the things that I put some time into. Got on a bit of a whim, because my friends were playing it. But actually, so on a top level, I wanted to say this before I get into the specifics. I have been enjoying it. Like, I've only barely touched the single player. And it has got problems as a multiplayer game. And almost all of its problems are problems that, Battlefield has already had and has always had. I can describe to you the emotional arc of a Battlefield match, which is that, at its core, it's, 18 snipers are setting up homes for themselves, playing Animal Crossing at the back of the map. One person on your team is extremely good at the assault class. They are having a wonderful time. Everyone else is sort of respawning and dying in a kind of, I suppose this qualifies as entertainment, middle state. The outcome of this back and forth between attack and defender is ultimately determined by who rage quits first. Nothing matters, but a series of meta numbers go up. You level up your class, you level up your guns, you level up the vehicles you occupy. You get new stuff for all of these, and now attachments and cosmetics and cosmetic attachments, and new looks and stuff that you will then, after every game, which takes every match takes longer than you have ever played a game. It takes forever, and then you quit to find that there is a new thing notification, like a kind of something new in this menu, blip above every single fucking button in the game. And you have to click everything. Because if you're like me and you can't live without being at inbox 0, it's the last thing I've got, and you can't take that from me. Then you have to click everything and go like, what did it unlock for the medic on the Axis side? Ooh, yeah. It's a mint barrel for my Sten gun.
By mint,
it's just called mint. It's
new,
bluish.
New
no,
mint,
it's just
or
bluish.
is it just kind of
etc. So there's all of this quantum bollocks that is sort of lavished over it, and I find it it's Moorish but empty, but on top of that, all the thing you're doing minute to minute, the reason it's fun is because it is just this reliable dispenser of spectacle, of really cool moments. And actually, it has officially been enough time that I kind of missed World War II shooters. There were so many of them for so long, and they were gone away for a long time, and I've always had a hit and miss relationship with quote unquote realistic war games, and we spoke about that with World War One, with Battlefield 1 at length, and I liked Battlefield 1 by the end of its life. Well, it's not dead yet, but it might as well be, because it replaces it. But actually, even though there's a limited number of maps, and they're inconsistent as maps, like as bits of level design, its sort of ability to deliver this, sort of grand kind of, sort of fast-paced shooter spectacle, I think is about as good as it's ever been, which is really nice. Like when everything comes together, it's a really, really solid shooter. I think Tom Senior's spoken before about how the shooting mechanics are better than they have been previously, but also, it's nice to return to an era of like, both sort of like really gratifying bolt action rifles, but also kind of like quite potent sort of machine guns and the ability to set up nests. The fortification system, which allows you to build stuff, like a pre-positioned things, but you can like lay out sandbags and build a machine gun turret and things.
Oh, so the snipers literally are making little houses.
Yeah, some of them are just standing at the back of the level. There will always be those people, and they will never help. Like, but like, and it's DICE is at fault for not figuring them out yet, but I think they probably understand that a lot of their audience just plays those games, stand at the back of the level with a rifle and take pot shots, basically. And like the planes feel really good, and I've always loved Battlefield for being able to like go up in a plane and fly around. They sound amazing, like good Stuka honk, that's not what it's called, but you know, like, it's good. It's good. There's all of that stuff. And I've genuinely like, you have games where it just feels pointless to continue. And I think the thing that's changed for me is, so the things that are interesting conceptually, but I think under delivered, like, they've been trying for years with Battlefield to find a way to kind of like do campaigns, right? Like if every Battlefield game is like a game of Warhammer or a tabletop game where you field all your pieces against each other and play this massive game of territory control, and they are similar and they take 100 years. Then the dream of that is, how do we stitch these together in a meaningful way? How do we tell a story from one match into the other? And in Battlefield 5, that takes the form of Grand Operations, which is this, 3-part mission series where you play 3 games back to back, and you've got to be prepared to pay for about an hour, basically, to do the whole thing. And the idea being, and they start in really cool ways. So usually you'll play the first map twice and then another variant on the same map in the same environment. And it always starts with airborne, which is where the attackers deploy from planes that are flying over the level and can be shot down with flak guns, which is kind of cool. And you parachute down and you try and deliver bombs to artillery guns and take them out. And then the next one, you kind of push up and capture points. And then the final one is like a showdown. And it's actually quite, it feels kind of gratifying. It's like an evening of play to do 1 or 2 of these, and then you get an infinite unlocks and all the rest of it. My problem with it stems from the fact that the winner of the whole grand operation is whoever wins the final map. It doesn't really matter what happens on the way. If the attacker wins any of the previous matches, they get more tickets, which basically means more respawns in the following matches. But actually, because games of Battlefield, I think on public servers, unless you're playing with a squad of friends and you feel like you can really meaningfully impact the flow of the thing, feel very arbitrary anyway. Like, the scale of it's a 64-player multiplayer game. The scale means that, you, as an individual player, have very limited control over what happens. Occasionally you can pull off a really good play. Squads have a little bit more control, but that's the biggest unit of individual agency it really has. No one is playing Battlefield with 32 friends, or 31 friends. And the problem with that is winning and losing feels kind of arbitrary, and it's not where the game's strength lies. So putting the overall win on the final match alone makes the whole arc feel sort of pointless, which is a bit of a shame. That said, I've been enjoying it. The thing I wanted, to talk about partly, particularly in relationship with Attack on Tarkov, Escape from Tarkov, which I will talk about, is, Battlefield has one of the, I think, unintentionally funniest relationships with, dying in a war zone, of any game. And it speaks to, I think, some of its tonal kind of weirdness, but also, have you played it, either of you?
No.
Okay.
Battlefield 1, but not 2.
Right. 2 has a new system. And I like to think of this as sort of like an attempt to, they've tried hard, and I appreciate it, to like make medics work. And this is a thing that's been going on for ages. So, and make reviving work. Like Battlefield always feels like a the developers desperately trying to make players cooperate, and players desperately don't want to at all. So that's the broader design thing here, is like, how the hell, like, this is a squad shooter, which is all about setting objectives and achieving them together. However, no human being wants to do this.
When I played Medic in Battlefield 2, I loved to heal people and to revive them. They did not really like being revived because they usually died for a really good reason, and it was their location, and they're still in the same damn place.
So Battlefield,
but I got the points, so I'm out of there.
Battlefield 5 has an amazing relationship with this. So, when you get shot, you go to like a lying down, I can be revived position, as in previous Battlefield games. At this point, timer starts ticking down. This is when you will die. And it's quite grim. It's, you are lying there, and by default, you are lying there placidly, sort of waiting to die. You can see the red hemming in the edge of your vision.
Mother.
You can hear your heartbeat. Well, no, you don't, not yet. You have two options. So this is, just think about this from an existential point of view. You can see the circular, like, expiry timer on your existence as this momentary instance of a battlefield man. You can either hold the left mouse button or the right mouse button. If you hold the left mouse button, this is called call for help. And what you do is you basically try not to die a little bit harder than you normally would. And it slows the progress of your death, your actual death, a little bit, as your character goes through a series of, like, I think, like, ultimately, like, they got some mileage out of their voice actors, but they got a lot out of their voice actors, and they probably got too much out of their voice actors. Because you can basically hold the left mouse button to go like, oh fuck! It hurts! Medic! I'm dying! I don't want to die! I'm so young, and this war there's no reason for it!
So you might be hearing this like 20 times over the
yeah, exactly. Like,
and other players hear this, I assume.
Yeah, they do, and your bloody hand stretches to the sky, and you clutch at yourself, and like, oh god, what is it all for?
I just really want to see, like, my friend run around a corner, and then the next thing I hear is this, oh god, what's it all for? God, it hurts so much. The pain, like, please.
No, why? It's maybe not that quite that, but there's a lot like, shit, medic, no, fuck, as you try not to die. And then you can also hold the right mouse button to try and die faster. Which sometimes involves the same shouting, but like in a slightly different context. You normally just like,
I hate this, but don't help me.
and occasionally as you perish, you'll go like, oh, fucking medic. And it's very good because,
screw medics, I don't want help anyway.
there are two reasons to do this. One is the, there are three. One is the, I have died off in the wilderness and I just want to respawn faster, which is often the case for people who are, for example, sniping at the back of the map. So it's just like, oh, fuck it, I want to be a plane. And the other is, I have understood something fundamental about Battlefield, which is no one will ever help me for any reason. Because it also shows you the location, it gives you an icon for every nearby medic on your team and how far away they are.
Oh god.
So you can see, if sometimes you'll die and you'll see medic, medic symbol, their name 20 meters away, and you'll hold the left mouse button.
Oh yeah, that was kind of in Battlefield 1.
Yeah, you'll hold the left mouse button to go like, oh god, the light, I can see it. And you'll see that they'll start counting down because they're running for you. It'll come down to 1 meter and then they will like inject you and you'll stand back up again. And then the final reason you do this is obviously because you've died in a really bad place. Like you've been caught out by like a machine gun trap or something, and you don't want someone to come for you because, they'll die as well. So you just do the earnest thing of like, oh, I'll die faster then. Which is such an amazing abstraction. Like, but the, I forgot where I was going with this. Where was I going with this?
No one ever helps you.
No one else
helps. I'm seeing the countdown of medics coming towards you.
The punchline to all of this is everyone can revive everyone else in Battlefield.
Oh, it's not just a
the
medic
only
thing.
difference is medics do it instantly.
Right.
Everyone else has to give you like a pat down. And so the best, like,
well, they're sort of stealing kind of.
So no, yeah, basically. And so there is like a kind of, there's a sort of, I think, I love unintentional consequences of this stuff in games, but there's like a kind of, and I'll get to another one. But like, there's a kind of plaintive sort of politics to this. So I'll give you an example. You've been gunned down, but maybe you were sniped from behind, your head was poking out above cover and you've been shot. So you're dead behind cover. It's relatively safe to revive you. But there aren't any medics nearby. And you can see this because no medics will show up. It only shows you the proximity to nearby medics. However, your mate, who you don't know, who's on your squad, but he doesn't know who you are, your strangers on the internet, is an assault or the heavy support class with a machine gun or something, or a sniper, and it's just hanging out next to you, playing the game. He has to take, or she has to take 5-10 seconds of their time to revive you, if they really want to. And most people don't want to be revived, because they want to be a plane, or a tank. And so
only heal me
there's a
if
moment,
you can also transform me.
Yeah, there's a moment of going like, you do nothing. They'll probably do nothing. You hold down right mouse button to die faster and go like, hey! And then they'll ignore you completely. But if you sort of like call for help enough with the left mouse button, they're kind of like, oh no, it hurts. Then eventually, sometimes you'll get the reluctant patting down from someone who could have definitely just revived you from the get-go. It's a weird game. It's really, really weird.
I wish that like, holding right mouse was just like, I'm fine with this. It's cool. I wasn't having a good life anyway.
What it should be.
War is good, actually.
This was worth it. Dulce et decorum est.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it should be press left mouse button to think about all the things you regret not having done in your life. Press right mouse button to appreciate that you've had a full and rewarding life. Yeah, it's like left mouse button to flash forward, right mouse button to flash back. Anyway, yeah, that's Battlefield 5. It's good. I think.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's a good jump on for an evening with mates. Sort of and run around blasting stuff game. I wish it wasn't so busy with meta advancement mechanics, because these games have never needed them, and that's the thing.
That's what they kind of seem to indicate, though, because they're also cosmetic. Like, there are all these multi-part bits as well.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to make your gun really ugly, you can definitely do that.
I remember the good old days, Battlefield 2, which had unlockable weapons, but just one for every class.
Yeah,
and the medics one, I was a career medic. And their unlockable gun was just insanely good. It was just, I could consistently outsnipe snipers because my gun, if you put it in single shot mode, was super accurate. It was an assault rifle, but it was very accurate at long range. And I was a medic, so I could just throw like 7 med bags at my feet. And sniper rifles never killed you in one hit. They're always like, they did 95% damage. So they'd like get me down to 5%, but I'd immediately heal to 100% with my med kit, and I would be shooting back at them, and they don't have that healing thing, so I just win. A headshot would kill you, but a body shot would be 95.
I'll say 2 additional things in Battlefield 5's praise before I move on from it. One is that they continue to try very hard to make medics good. So, medics, things people play. I play medic exclusively as well. So that you're always at the top of the scoreboard because you get so many points for helping. But they have accidentally, I think, made an extremely accurate representation of what medic help actually looks like. So, you pick one of two gadgets as you level up the medic. You can either put down a crate of medical supplies, which provides healing in a radius around it, and people can go for it to resupply their healing. Health regen isn't automatic anymore in Battlefield, so you have to have a healing pack, and then you expend it in order to heal a chunk of your health.
Because that's how it was actually in World War II. I read it. About
you don't just regen by hiding behind a barrel until the jam goes away, which is how war has worked for the last 10 years. You heal now by just pressing C, so that you heal a proportion of your health. And if you are a medic, you have infinite access to these, so you can actually heal. That's the medic thing, is you can heal back to full all the time because you're a medic and you can heal thyself. If you can either put down a box to create like a place where you can rally around and get people can get their own healing without needing you to be there. The other option is you can simply like throw these healing packs to people. This is your kind of healing, like active healing equivalent. And so it's like usually it's 3 by default. It's your action bar 3. And they've simplified it massively. So like you no longer need to like pull out your healing kit in order to revive someone. You just go up to them, press use. Now you don't even need to like activate your healing item to give it to people. What you do is you press 3 and you will automatically throw a health pack at everyone around you who doesn't currently have one.
Please
Like,
heal.
all at
Please
once, or do you
heal.
sort of spin
Like,
round
like a
rapidly?
spray. Like imagine you're like a wizard, like a magician, like a kind of children's birthday party magician.
Throwing a deck of cards.
Yeah, like, whoa, and you've got like presents for all the kids. And the best thing about this is they are...
You get a medkit, you get a medkit, you get a medkit.
They are, the way they are programmed, they are physics objects. They are physics objects, and the person is credited with, because otherwise a healing kit is just an invisible, it's a yes or a no. Everyone can hold one at a time, so it's a binary flag on their current status. You're credited it with the moment the health kit collides with you. But there is no animation for the character catching them, and the health kit doesn't vanish when it hits them. Because that would be the obvious thing, would be just to remove the model.
Absorb into their flesh.
Yeah, they just sort of absorb it. So instead you throw it at them, and a lot of the time you're throwing it at people who are prone or crouching. And so a lot of the time it just bonks off their helmets and just scatters away. And there's so much...
It just fades out, or
it just bounces off onto the ground.
It's just on the ground,
I'd like
but they
to
have
think
it
that
now.
it's like, it's quite persistent. So
I got the valuable components. You can have the rest.
Yeah, and there's so much going on. There's destructible buildings and all this chaos all the time. So it's only when you take a moment. It took me a while of playing to notice this was happening. But you just press a button. If you're in a crowd, it's great if you're in a crowd of people who all happen to not have a med kit at the same time. Because you do this like fucking Gambit from the X-Men, like, wah! Hey guys! Like, fucking throwing bags at everybody. And they all like impact harmlessly off the back of their heads and like flop to the ground. And then you start getting shitloads of points as everyone invisibly uses them. And then you press it again, you're just like, yeah, it's like throwing a beanbag at a store mannequin. Like,
we've all done
relatable
that.
thing. I got more experience throwing medkits at people.
It's very good and very silly.
What a weird decision to have it like physically bounce off people who technically have collected it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it must be, from an engine point of view, it must be a case of not switching something off, right?
It must be some sort of...
It's like, it's a collision object, so by default it has certain properties that will allow it to ricochet off something.
I wonder if it's maybe a latency thing, because it doesn't know definitely whether
Yeah, maybe. Because you can also miss, and the person still gets it. So you can be like, someone can be like running and jumping, and you'll like clearly just throw it off a bridge behind them.
That counts, it's fine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll get it later.
It's thought that counts.
Yeah, you're very unprofessional as a medic, to be honest. Good. So the other game I've been playing is Escape from Tarkov, which is currently an early access thing. It is, I believe, and I might be wrong about this, and I'll correct myself on a future episode if I am, by a bunch of ex-Stalker developers. It is, in any case, extremely Stalker in some ways. It doesn't have the sort of radioactive / supernatural component of your typical Russian kind of survival sim, but a very similar setup. Like, this city has been cordoned off so that like men who look like Phil Mitchell can kill each other there. And when I say that, I really, really mean it, because so it's a multiplayer game. Sort of Destiny structured in some ways, or at least it's a kind of I don't mean that in the loosest possible sense. It's a persistent shooter. It's currently in early access, so it doesn't have all of its systems yet. And it's really deeply strange, and it might take me a little bit of explaining. Basically, you create a main character who belongs to a PMC, or an ex-member of a PMC, and you are either an ex-bear, which is the Russian PMC, or an ex-USEC, which is the American PMC.
A bear.
A bear. It is quite, the whole thing is quite homoerotic in a way
It's
that
very
definitely definitely didn't intend.
What are the Americans called?
USEC.
USEC
versus bear. It's
steamy.
like, this is genuinely like,
this is Ukraine.
It has like sort of fun camp appeal. Except for the people who are making it. Definitely. It's very serious about its simulation. So it's a very seriously simulated, sort of wandering around in a gloomy Russian industrial estate, gloomy Russian forest, gloomy Russian, office complex, gloomy Russian factory. Being murdered simulator. So it has very realistic ballistics, has extremely realistic guns, very realistic controls. Not like, it's slightly slicker than something like Armor, but has the same sort of aspirations in terms of you can use the mouse wheel to adjust exactly how fast you walk So it's not just run and sprint. It's like, ooh, a little bit faster, a little bit slower. You know, ballistic damage is realistic. So if you get shot in the arm, you need to use a splint. You know, if you get shot in the stomach, you'll die slowly and want some water. Like, these are, you know,
the 2 side effects.
Yeah.
Death, slight thirst.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about it. It doesn't quite live up to its own standards in that regard. But yeah, it's all about the kind of realistic ballistics. If you can press like Alt and T to check the chamber on your gun in a kind of meticulously animated looking inside the gun kind of way.
Why would you look inside the gun?
Is there a bullet there?
Can you press the numbers 0 to 9 to count individual bullets?
You can't. It's not quite receiver, but it's like, but there's barely any UI, right? Like it's all sort of, it's that simulationist desire that I associate very much with games like Armor and Stalker to like make you really feel like you are in this deeply shit situation.
Is Tarkov a prison?
It's a city.
Okay.
It's a city that has been designated like a special economic area and subsequently war.
Okay.
Is as far as I can tell the story.
Why is it hard to leave?
Why didn't Amazon step in and stop the war?
Why didn't Amazon step in? I don't know. Maybe they did. I haven't really invested too much in the backstory. What you do in it is, this is where things get wild, is you go on little raids, which means you pick a map and a time of day and you load into that map. And if you're using your normal character, you are always in the first 6 players to enter that region. And you'll be there for a maximum of about 35, 45 minutes. And your job is to go in, loot stuff, get to an extraction zone and leave. That is your only ambition, basically, with your friends or without. And all of those realistic ballistics, the sound design, it's all very much about like extremely cautious murder, basically, and stealing things and trying to get away with them. If you can pull that off when you return to the hub menu, you can trade stuff. So to either NPCs, the
stuff that you found.
Yeah. So if you, or you can, put stuff on a extremely detailed auction house, which is closer to Eve than anything else. So it's like Gun Eve. You found an attachment for a Mosin rifle. You put that up for rubles and you get some money back that you use to insure your guns so that next time if you die and no one loots your stuff, you get it back. That's the other thing. If you die and someone loots you, that stuff's gone completely. Then there are NPCs in the levels called scavs, which are scavengers, who are, their AI isn't very good and they walk around. They're basically a source of free stuff, except you can also choose to do a scav run where you become one of the scavs. Basically, you spawn as a scav, like a randomly generated person in a level with a limited number of exit points available to you. And you can spawn at any point in the lifespan of that map. So if a map was sort of generated for a group of players 20 minutes ago, you might be thrown in midway through their run, if that makes sense. You can only use a scav once every 10 minutes in real time to prevent you from spamming them. And if you escape with a scav, you can then give everything that scav owns, including their randomly generated equipment, to your main player.
Nice.
Which is a really weird system, because it sort of implies that this person goes off like hunting for you and then you take their trousers. But I don't know if that even gets to the bottom of like why it's so strange. And like,
so who's hunting you in the level?
Other players and AI.
So what, the other players are
other PMC people.
Literally just
there for the same thing you are. Right? Like the question is, do I come out of this level with your gear or do you come out of it with mine? And that comes down to, and because the ballistics are good and because the weapon simulation is gratifying, it's got this sort of like, it is basically like the good bits of a DayZ game. The game, right? Just the gunfight bit.
And squeezed into
but also
concentrated form.
Nested within a bafflingly complicated sort of meta game about selling and trading guns, like bottomless gun customization. You know, you've got to like Diablo style identify items before you know what they are, even if it's like a lighter or a can of salmon. So you have to stare and go like, what the fuck is this? It's a salmon.
I sense a lighter.
It says on the label, but like, and there's no limit on, like, it's opaque to a point of, I definitely wouldn't recommend jumping in alone. I've been playing it with, I've only just started playing it, but I've been playing it with friends, and that, there is some fun to be had with that. And there is, I think I appreciate how defiantly unwilling it is for you to have fun like more maybe than I actually like it. Like I'm still getting a feel for whether or not I enjoy playing it moment by moment, because it has a really good talent for being a game where nothing happens. Sometimes you get like a good scav.
How many people might be on a lap?
It's hard to tell. It's very much like, I don't know how many people are in here, because it doesn't tell you anything. Like, there are no names over players' heads. There's no indicate when you hit someone. Like, this is why it makes a comparison with Battlefield. In Battlefield, you know, when you shoot someone, they do a lot of work to make you feel like, yeah, good job. You got some points for that. Maybe you'll unlock something later. In this, it's very much like you think you hit them. Maybe they have bled to death. You know, you don't know. You can press Y to react to event. That is what the Y button does, is react to event. If you're looking at a door and you press Y, and you should play as the Russians, because then you say it in Russian, like, open this. But if you've been shot, you go like, oh. And there's no reason to do this at all, but you can.
It's just role-playing stuff.
Yeah, it's just role-playing stuff. Like, it's very much in that vibe. It's, you know, but to the point where it even plays against itself. Like, so at the moment there's no character customization. So everybody is a gruff, bald Phil Mitchell dude. And they all look extremely cross and walk with a slight hunch. And I appreciate that this was cool to somebody, and it is unintentionally very funny. The other issue is you obviously have different equipment, but your equipment is the only thing that differentiates you from anybody else. Everyone looks the same, friendly or enemy. And even if you're grouped up with your friends, there is no indication who's who. There's no in-game icon or name above people's heads. There is no way to tell who your friends are. So 80% of playing with friends, and the more friends you play with, up to a squad of 5, the harder this becomes, is clarifying whether or not, yes, it is you that is coming up the stairs.
Is this you?
Because it's full friendly fire, because of course it is, and it's extremely lethal. So if it's like, so imagine 5 people all at the same time going like, and yes, I'm walking through the door now, I'm coming around the corner, yes, that's me in the big hat. Like, that is the experience of playing it in co-op. And that feels like a step too far for realism, because in real life you can recognize other people. Like, and so like the system that my friends and I developed before I started playing with them, is you can use the Q and E buttons to lean. And if you alternate Q and E, you can do a fun little waggly dance. So the thing you do is if you see another person, the moment before you shoot, you shout waggle, and everyone waggles and does a little dance. And if the person you're looking at doesn't do the little dance, they are the imposter.
Executed for non-waggling.
But they're shooting you as you're waggling. No, the waggle dance.
You don't shoot someone who waggles. If they waggle, they're on your team, right? You don't shout it in game.
The enemy would shoot you for waggling, though.
Yeah, right. You often give
what the fuck is he doing? Kill him.
You give up a precious moment for waggling. But there's like, it adds this admin layer to shooting anybody.
I wonder if there's like a subculture of like folks who just always lean left all the time. Just always leaning left, so they just know each other. And then there's the leaning right people.
Well, I mean,
speaking of
the anti-cheat stuff, there's an element of like, so the AI for the
machine learning is never going to figure this out. He waggled and then he shot. I don't know what that means.
It means human. This is what a human is. One who waggles. But yeah, like the scavs, the AI controlled opponents, not the AI isn't very good, and they're obvious just from how they move. Like they tend to not sprint. They just walk at the sort of default running pace. They don't look about. So you just see someone like, it literally looks like if you plot an A to B course for an AI in a game, and they just use their default animation to get there. But you can pretend. If you're playing solo, you can pretend that's you. and so there's an element of fun to it. But again, it's a weird old thing.
That sounds strangely compelling.
It is quite compelling. It is fun because hide and seek is fun, and because it's so lethal that like sneaking up on someone and taking their stuff has a thrill to it. Like, I would distill it as the good bits of DayZ delivered relatively reliably compared to DayZ. But yeah, I think it'll have a story mode eventually, and you know, all of its latest trailers show off like crazy gadgets and crazy ballistic systems and mad realism that I don't really feel I have access to at the moment, because I'm only like a level 3 bear. But yes. Tom.
Hello, both of you. Thank you for coming here today. I gathered you to talk about Fortune 499, which I played a little bit. And this was my friend Zach Johnson tweeted about this, to say that he couldn't remember the last time he was this instantly charmed by a game. And that was a strong recommendation. So I bought it and I played it and I thought, I can't remember the last time I was so instantly charmed by a game. You are a fortune teller. I'm just now getting the title because I grasped that it was Fortune 500 to play on that. I am only just now grasping that you're also a fortune teller, and that's the pun. But it's I would describe its visual fidelity level as kind of Undertale-esque.
That's an IGN 5 if you're checking.
Graphics ability 5.
It's a bit less. I don't want to shit on Undertale at all, but it's a bit nicer. Yes.
Yeah, the art is good. And it's, even though it's quite lo-fi, it is at the same time incredibly polished in all the ways that matter. Like all of the things that actually affect what a player thinks of your game in the first 30 seconds and the first 5 minutes, and just, putting the humor up front,
Dialogue's really
getting you on board, and I guess it's fairly slow to kind of get to what the mechanic is, because the mechanic is when you fight somebody, your first fighting experience is a friend teaching you how fighting works, and you are just playing rock, paper, scissors, like literally just the hand gestures game, which I specify because later on you do real fights, but you're still playing rock, paper, scissors. So I assume you're actually throwing rocks at them or like stabbing them with scissors. I don't know. But it does real damage. And I think they picked an intentionally very basic combat structure because the main mechanic is this, deck of cards you have. And when you draw a new card you can choose whether to draw a card or not and how many cards to draw. But when you draw a card, it might have the 4 of scissors on it. And that means that your opponent is +4 likely to draw scissors. And so, like, the fiction is that you're fortune telling. The game mechanic really is that you're influencing what they're going to do. Because by drawing that, you have made it more likely that they're going to draw scissors. And so now, obviously, you might want to choose rock because that will counter scissors, and they're likely to choose scissors. It's not a dead cert by any means. It literally just affects the probability, and there actually is a random a random dice roll thing. And you can draw more cards, which is weird. Because the first thing it tells you is like, you can draw more cards, but be careful because if you then draw like paper, now you've just made it more likely that both these two things will happen. So you have less certainty about what they're going to do. They might do either of those two things. They're probably not going to draw a rock, but they're probably going to draw scissors or paper. And, so you have less certainty. If you did draw another scissors, that'd be great, but the chances of that are obviously less than the chance of drawing something that contradicts your prediction and makes it just more muddy and less clear. So I was thinking, why would you ever draw more? But as it goes along, you get cards that, increase your mana, and then you can spend that mana on spells, most of which seem to just affect this current turn. So, but they do things like, paper and scissors do 1 less damage from the enemy. So the way combat actually works, actually resolves is you play rock, paper, scissors, you both choose one of those 3 things, and if you win, if you win with rock, you do your rock damage to them, and by default I think they're all 1 or they're all 2 or something. But you can also cast spells that buff, like just your rock damage. And now you've got like a extra incentive to choose rock, even if you don't have a reason to believe it's the most likely thing. So if you have like a super powerful rock, you actually might not even want to draw a card, because if it tells you that they're going to do paper, that's information you don't want. Like, you want to play rock, and just the 1 in 3 chance of killing them outright is better than knowing what they're going to play and having a higher chance of doing only 1 damage to them. If you both draw the same thing, then you both do your damage to each other. So if you have a really good rock, like, it's good to do it, because even if they pick rock as well, you will do more damage to them than they do to you. So there's this kind of meta game about buffing those things. And I haven't got super far with it, so that's about as complex as it's got so far. But the dialogue is really, really good. You're a fortune teller who works in an office, and the office seems to have all the wizards are at like a company retreat to do a team building exercise, and monsters invade while that's happening. So you're actually not a magic user, and there are other magic users around. You claim that all your powers come from fate, which you seem to think is not magic. And so you're kind of like, claim not to be a magic user, but what you're doing to me, if you're generating mana and casting spells, I would say you're a magic user.
I think a jury of your peers would bear.
Yes. Convict you for magic use.
Just to check this though, I think we do need to develop a machine learning.
And this is just like, this is your day job, and it's kind of a shitty day job, and then it gets invaded by monsters, and you fight them a bunch, and then the point I've got to is like, after that, you go like to the bar with your friends and you talk about your shitty job again, and then like, you go back the next day, I guess, to continue fighting monsters there. So it's like, even after it gets invaded by monsters and it's a total crisis, it's still just your day job. You're only doing 9 to 5. The rest of the time it's just downtime.
I think we've all worked in web media.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have not played it as much as I should have, because I'm suffering from something that sounds like certainly Alex is also suffering from, where the good, worthy, charming, lovely new games that people keep recommending to you lose out to the game that you've played for 1,000 hours already and you keep coming back to again and again and again, which in my case is not Destiny, it's Slay the Spire. And I've gone back to that because they added mods. And I wasn't that interested in that at first, and then I actually looked at what the mods were and thought, okay, because they're new classes, a lot of them anyway, the most popular ones. And that's a tall order, like, because classes are the content for Slay the Spire. Like, Slay the Spire has 3 experiences, really, and they're the 3 classes, and adding a 4th to that is kind of a big deal. But I've been really surprised at how well made they are. I played 3 of them, and 2 of them are good, and one of them is a good idea that doesn't quite work out. But the best one is the slime bound, which is where it's quite an obvious thing to do as a mod maker, is you take one of the enemies and say, okay, that's the player now, and what abilities would they have? But it's no small feat, because a class in Slay the Spire is at least 75 cards. 75 unique cards, and you're going to make a deck with, multiples of some of those. And that's a lot of different things going on, and also unique mechanics. And also, like, it's implicit in the design of Slay the Spire that each class is kind of about 3 different ways to play, I would say. Like, each one, if you're playing as a silent, you can go poison, you can go shivs, or you can go discard, and actually there's probably 2 or 3 others. And if you go defect, then you can specialize in like, frost defense or power cards or 0 cost cards, or lightning attack and stuff like that. And the Slimebound, the thing that's impressive to me about it is it does have at least 3 completely distinct ways to play it. I think probably 4. You're a slime. A slime is an enemy in the game. Usually the main mechanic with with slime enemies is that when you get them to half health or less, they split into 2 slimes, which both have that amount of health. You don't have that as an inherent ability when you play as the slime, but you do have a lot of cards that split you. And when it says split, it means it creates a small slime, which costs you 3 health, and you get that 3 health back at the end of the fight, assuming you win. And that slime will do something on the end of the enemy turn, actually. Which, at its most basic will be they'll do some damage to the enemy, but some of them do poison to the enemy, some of them do goop to the enemy, and some of them do some damage to the enemy, but also give you some block for the next turn. And so you can...
It's a bit like
the defect.
The defect.
Yeah, the defect in his orbs. It is a bit similar to that.
But kind of like with a sort of necromancer.
If that was the only thing they had going on, it would be a bit too derivative. But, yeah, it's cool because making these things sacrifices your max health. And it's very well judged in that if it actually dealt you 3 damage, I think I just wouldn't do it because it'd be like, well, losing 3 health is never going to be worth what this pays off. But because you get it back at the end of the fight, it's kind of a risk reward thing. Like, can I afford... when you're making 1 slime, sure, 3 health's no problem. But I have cards that can make, like, 4 slimes at once, and I'm going to cast those multiple times in a fight. You can have up to 10, and at that point you've lost 30 health. And if you survive the fight, it's no loss at all. You get it all back. And there's no way to kind of lose a slime without getting a health back. There's no way to it's not a risk of the health. But you're on fucking 35 health or something, and a good hit from the enemy will just straight up kill you. So that's really interesting. And then it has a whole load of other mechanics. The goop thing I mentioned, is a new kind of thing you can apply to enemies, which if they have 10 goop and any attack you hit them with will do 10 extra damage and heal you for 5, half the goop, and consume the goop. So that it only works for one attack, but then there's stuff like the attack called It Looks Tasty, will, because this is an attack, it consumes goop and, benefits from it, but it also, its benefit is if they were already gooped, it gives you a lick card. And lick cards are 0-cost cards that exhaust when you play them, but they always add some goop, and they also do some other stuff, like add poison or add some other things. And so if they're already gooped and you have It Looks Tasty, then you hit them with that gives you a lick, then you lick them again, licks are always free, so then if you have another attack and you have another energy, you can also attack them again and get the benefit of the new goop that you added by licking them again.
I always feel like real life. I feel like if games give us nothing else culturally, they have given us a series of sentences you would never otherwise have said.
It was weirder when goop used to be called slime, and so you were a slime who had some slimes, and you would slime people and then get the slime back, and it was just every word involved in the whole thing was the word.
To be
slime.
fair, that's like being any Warhammer character, extremely tight IP.
So the lick cards, and you have some other cards that also cost 0 and exhaust. All of those end up being a kind of route that you could go down as your whole build, because there's also a card that gets them all back. So exhaust usually means they're gone for the rest of the fight. But if you use this one card, I can't remember the name of it, it brings them all back into your hand. And because they're 0 cost, you can just do them all right now. And so if you have even one attack and that card, you can end up doing 8 different licks to the enemy, which stacks up a crazy amount of goop. And if that one attack is It Looks Tasty, you can get all that delicious goop and also get a new lick to lick them again.
Oh God, Tom.
It's a good mod, and you should play it.
Have you been tempted to explore making your own mod?
Funny you should ask, because I have, and I'm not going to do it. Because the idea, I kept thinking what I'd like to, because the thing that slime is lacking is that it's not really a totally new mechanic. It's a variation on the defects mechanic. And I was thinking, what totally new mechanic could you do that would be interesting? And I thought something like stances, where there's a kind of fighter character who has an aggressive stance where all their attacks do more damage, and a defensive stance where all their defense does more damage, and a neutral stance where they both do what they normally do. And then you could have cards that benefit that, like this power makes your defense stance even more defensive, or this attack both attacks and switches your stance. And it turns out someone's already done a character a lot like that, called the Construct, which again is an enemy from the game that they've just made as a character class. And it doesn't quite work. And I'm not really sure if it's because of the concept itself or the implementation, but it's one of the things I like about Slay the Spire is that it often feels like cheating. You often get a card that lets you just bypass the only drawback of the other card, or multiply something unrestrictedly. You can triple the poison when you've already tripled the poison once already on this hand, because you can have 2 copies of this card and that kind of stuff. You can get totally out of control, and you feel like you've found a loophole and bypassed the rules. And this does that too much. So you can, it has these modes, and you switch to defensive mode and you get some dexterity, which buffs all your defense cards, and you switch to attack mode, and then you get some strength, which buffs all your attack cards. But then, the way that's implemented is the switch card, subtracts 2 strength and adds 2 dexterity. But it also has a bunch of artifact cards, which, when you have an artifact on you, that means you'll resist the next debuff. And taking that dexterity away counts as a debuff. So if you have artifact and then you switch modes, you don't get the disadvantage, but you do get the advantage. Which is okay, that's kind of the sort of thing, it's almost too good though. That's okay, now I just get no disadvantage and I also get the advantage. And then there's a card that, switches your dexterity and your strength. So, you could, make your defensive mode really, really good. And then if you happen to need attack, you play that card to get really good attack instead of really good defense. But if you have artifact, instead of switching, you just get both. Because the card doesn't say this, but what it's really doing is debuffing one of them to the lowest level and buffing the other one to the highest level. And because you have artifact, the debuff doesn't count, so they just both stay at the highest possible level. And that's just insane. That just feels like a bug. It's
that sounds buggy.
This says it switches the thing. It didn't switch the thing. I just got two infinitely good stats and now I'm incredible. And so, like, there's a threshold of, like, the loopholiness of Slay the Spire is a positive, but if you go too far with it starts to feel like this is just weird now.
Don't forget that Slay the Spire is built upon, untold hours of feedback now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also that's ever the case with mods, right? Though inevitably, like, some people like the experience of bolting something onto the game that simply kind of breaks it or allows you to feel super powerful. Shall we do some questions from questions? It's 2019.
Yes, please, Chris.
Yes.
That's my cheat resistant jazz intro. Questions from questions. You won't get me, Dean Lerner.
Dean Lerner can't learn this.
It's good. It's good. Watch Dark Place, everybody. It's very good. Sam writes, howdy, creatine and power bar. I heard Tom F. mention a while ago that he uses a laptop for game development. I'm looking into doing that myself for some reason. Sorry, this is kind of a bit of a Rick Sanchez kind of thing. And as I'm traveling for that next year, I'll need a portable computer.
A portable computer.
A portable computer. Can you please explain what power-hungry monster rigs you guys use to make video games happen?
I heard you and he use laptops. Yes, I do. I made almost all of Heat Signature on a MacBook Air, a 13-inch, which is very small and light. And the fact that it's light was very, very good for traveling. But when I switched to Unity, I found that 13-inch was too small because Unity's lots of different windows all at once. And so I switched to a 17-inch, which turned out to be too big. So now I have a 15-inch laptop, which turns out to be just right. So I now use a Surface Book 2, which is an amazing laptop. It's beautiful and high performance and lovely to use, but it is insanely expensive. I have to say, I can't really recommend it unless you have more money than you should. It's a stupid thing. But the key takeaway is 15 inches is the right amount of space if you're going to use Unity. And probably for Game Maker as well.
The Goldilocks theory of gaming.
17 inch, it sounds good, but it's just so fucking heavy and big and it's just difficult. Like you go to a cafe to work and it takes up the whole table, so there's no room for a mouse. And so that's a problem. And
yeah,
I don't think you can avoid passing for dork as well with one of those in public.
That ship has sailed for me.
I feel like we spend a lot of time like sitting in cafes Nero and Costa's co-working, and it's been unavoidable that entire time. Like it is hard to.
Yeah, I mean, like half the people in any given cafe have laptops at this point. It's you don't feel like an outcast.
No, I mean, as long as it's not like some kind of Alienware monstrosity that sounds like a Harrier jump jet taking off, you'd probably be alright.
If it's got like an RGB keyboard, you're kind of on the borderline of like, like we're all nerds, but that guy's a gamer.
But what's interesting, like a lot of developers don't have high powered rigs. Even Unity kind of generally runs 3D in a little window. But
is that true?
A lot of indies,
right? Yeah, okay.
I'll qualify that. But like among the Cognos, like. There's a lot of MacBooks going around and they're not that powerful, Yeah.
So
what I'm saying is you don't need a powerful computer, really.
It's kind of good for development because it means you don't have to optimize early. Cause it's like your unoptimized game is going to run like twice as slow as your optimized game at least. And if you have a good enough computer that doesn't matter, then you can just not worry about it until you have to. Whereas on my MacBook Air, I had to optimize heat signature earlier than I wanted to because it was just, I can't play this fucking game. Or like I can play it, but it's 15 FPS and that doesn't make me, it's not that I can't finish the missions, it's that I hate every second of the experience, which makes it hard to judge whether I've made a good game or not.
Good advice. I'm shopping for a laptop at the moment and I might actually get a 15. I was looking at 13-inch laptops, but maybe I will now go.
Get an Amstrad.
Yeah, 15's a nice point.
Just cart it around with me.
It's got a telephone on it.
Yeah. No, Alex, I have to do what you tell me.
That's that band one song.
Yeah.
I forgot to say, the actual reason I got Surface Book 2 is that it's one of the few laptops that has a touchscreen, and I was suffering from RSI, and touchscreen's really nice for especially for scrolling. Like, you open up TweetDeck and you can just sweep through any column you like, without touching a mouse, and it's just really nice.
Reach out and touch takes.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Our next question comes from Gus. Who writes, Chris, in episode 248, you were inebriated to call me Gus, rather than my given name, Wes. I now have a fun nickname, as several co-workers have taken to referring to me as Gus, which is objectively a better and more fun name than my parents saw fit to give me. Thanks? Question mark. You are welcome.
Question mark.
Welcome to the show, Gus.
You're very welcome, Andy. To all. I have a problem with replaying games despite a growing Steam backlog. As I suspect many others share, my current ambition is a replay of all 3 Dragon Age games in preparation for Dragon Age 4. I intend to create for myself a new headcanon, carefully staging the new game. It's Pip!
I heard Gus was in the room.
Shouting through the door, it's Pip!
Sorry, I just got home. I thought that would be fun. Now I leave.
Goodbye, Pip.
Bye. Unless there's a question I should be answering.
Oh well, we'll get to the end of this one. Also, you might need to move slightly closer to Alex's microphone or we won't be able to hear you.
Hello.
My current ambition is a replay of all 3 Dragon Age games in preparation for Dragon Age 4. I intend to create for myself a new headcanon, carefully staging a new game and simultaneously refreshing my memory on the lore of Thedas. I'm still in Ostagar and will almost definitely fail my objective. My question, what games do you find yourself replaying even against your own better judgment?
Well,
Hex cells. I can speedrun Hex cells.
what's your best time?
I don't know. I made that claim because I just play it a lot. I can do it quite fast.
So you're the sort of speedrunner who doesn't care about or optimize the time that you play.
Now, I may have understood speedrunning to just mean being a bit faster than I started off. But, yeah. I won't be on awesome games done quick.
There's another part to this question you might be able to help with, Pip.
Oh, cool.
Charles writes, bonus question, I'm a homebrewer and have recently made an American IPA steeped with Earl Grey tea. I would be honoured to have some proper Brits help me name my tea-infused beer.
Oh.
High TA. I don't know what the A is.
There you go.
Teetotal.
Oh, I see.
Is there an Earl that has beer in their name?
The Earl of Beer, I believe, has the beer.
Earl of Beer. There you go.
Earl Frank of Beer.
If you guys do the other question, I'll have a think. I'm plugging the mind tank.
So I was going to say that I actually recently replayed chunks of Dragon Age Origins for my final bit of writing for PC Gamer, which is a weird thing to have done. That is a big old journey to go on. I don't know if I would go on it all again now, although I'm very excited about the prospect of a 4th one. In terms of games I return to over and over again when I shouldn't, because other games exist, maybe Dishonored.
Dishonored. Yeah.
Ooh. Pip, lean in.
L.I.P. Grey. IPA. You see?
I feel like you've crushed the 2 words together and neither of them are happy anymore. Like a wheezing, dying mutant.
But I thought it, and then I wanted to say it, and I feel like Alex's parrot right now.
She's hovering
I'm a
over
bit-
my shoulder.
Hello?
Ah!
What about beer?
Don't bite my ear.
Beer IPA hot.
Nice.
Was
Yeah,
that-
no, I
what-
get it.
what?
I get it.
Beer IPA hot.
I get
don't
it.
understand.
See if they get it.
They don't. We've established that.
It's
It's a
the
Picard
expression.
reference.
It's a Jean-Luc Picard reference.
Beer IPA hot.
I don't know that.
That's what you'd order at the
No,
Replica.
no, wait, hang on. Beer, IPA, hop.
Oh yes, there it is.
It's nerd stuff.
I think it's nerd
So-
stuff.
Tea Earl Grey
nerds.
hot, surely?
Is that really unfamiliar to you?
Surely.
Tea Earl Grey hot is a.
Yeah.
Don't know that reference.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
No, we did it. We did it. Beer.
Chris and I know it's solved now.
Beer, IPA, hop is the is the thing you call that.
Surely it's important as to whether Gus/Wes knows what this reference is.
Chuck.
Did I actually get those names right while listening through the door?
Yeah. No one can truly know what
cool.
Wes's name is.
Sure.
Especially Wes.
Anyway, that about wraps up that question. Does it? No one else answered the question.
I think that's 365 degrees of 65 days.
Why 365? That's 5 degrees more than you need to go full circle.
Just to be complete.
What the hell are you talking about?
I'm just saying that we answered the question.
All right. Next one comes from Kane. It's more of a notification than a question, but it's a good one. Thought you might like to know the Community Game of the Year vote is over, and the results are up at link that will be in the show notes.
That's a bit presumptuous.
I write the show
literally
notes,
true.
Alex. I could forecast my own future actions to some extent. Many deserving games won, but sadly, Chris Thurston's Photoshop face, despite being in the autocomplete, failed to receive even a single vote. We'll have to do better next year. So thank you for everyone who didn't vote for me, thus perpetuating a running thing I didn't start.
I think, if I remember correctly, Subnautica was number one.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. So the question is, how did the community's opinions match up to yours, and were you right or were we right? And happily, we were all
Everyone was right.
It was, there's a good synergy between the community and us. I was also really chuffed that Heat Signature came in at number 12.
Yeah,
which is pretty good for a game that didn't come out that year.
Rundown.
You need some music, really, but yeah.
Pip?
A good brew. That's a thing.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause
that's
you
good.
brew tea and you brew ale.
I don't know. Is it going to be beer, IPA, hop?
Yes.
Apparently it will.
In that, I think non-nerds like me and Alex will understand it.
People who are into like homebrew IPAs are all nerds.
Yeah, no, there's no exception. If you're talking about American IPA, you're exclusively aiming this at the people who frequent kind of beer and barbecue and burger places in like the Pacific Northwest, or like I was in Austin recently, so Austin. Like,
Can you get an American IPA? Doesn't the I?
Yeah, look, I've got a bottle downstairs.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's literally
Don't worry,
true.
they're allowed. They're allowed to do this.
No, I genuinely.
It's because IPA doesn't mean anything really. But like,
you tell that.
And what I'm saying is-
India,
that will now be in
American,
your mentions.
Indian pale ale.
that's a dangerous combination.
But it's not because it was made in India, it's because British troops in India wanted a beer that wouldn't spoil in the hot temperature.
I did not know
Good
that.
fact. But the point is, yes, it is mostly consumed by people who will understand a TNG reference. So the point stands.
Does TNG stand for the new...
Total nerd.
Oh my god, Alex.
You're faking this at this point, right?
I know what that means. It's Jean-Luc Picard's game.
Jean-Luc Picard.
Jean-Luc Kippard. As it was pronounced before the Norman invasion.
John Paul Kipperman. Great.
John Paul Kipperman.
Alright, so we've got...
Should I go?
No.
It has generated, but
It's amazing, like... it's like...
That fell off, didn't it? Quickly.
Yeah, I have no idea, like,
Sorry.
we may have... Listeners will definitely know by now if this even works, trying to record two people with one microphone.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyone else? Apologies. So we've got 10 runners-up and a top 10 for the games of 2018 from the community. Let's go through them. So the top 10 runners-up are, in 10th place, Artifact.
So this is sort of 20th place overall.
So in 20th place, and at least if we say in 20th
Are they
place...
actually in... Is there a number on them, or are they just
Yes,
like
there are,
in a
yes.
10? Okay.
Yeah. So in 20th place, thus managing to come higher than its own concurrent player count.
Chris knows how to pick a hit.
My second place for Game of the Year, Artifact. In 9th place, a game I haven't played, but have heard other people talk about at great length. God of War.
Goddy War.
God of War.
PC.
No.
Yeah.
The community is not limited in the way that we are.
I don't know. Because I know literally... it
Provably
isn't.
not true.
Does that mean that Pocket Camp will be on there?
Yeah.
It could be, but it
It
might
means
not
it's
be.
eligible.
But it means you can vote for it, Pip, now. Finally.
Oh, brilliant.
The community's not constrained
It's
like
free.
we are.
Cool.
In In 18th place, Warframe.
Cultists.
In 17th place, Alex. Cultist Simulator. In 16th place, Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire. In 15th place, Prey. Did the moon crash?
Oh, I thought that said Minecraft.
Prey. Minecraft.
Spray Minecraft.
Got a great different DLC, guys. I know immersive sims are kind of dying, but you know what's hot? It's just fucking add Minecraft to it. Put a Minecraft on it.
14th place, the deserving Warhammer Vermintide 2. In 13th place, Spider-Man, or to give it its full name, Insomniac's Marvel's Sony's Spider-Man.
I want to give a shout out to the fact that not only do all of these games have cover art on this website, but they Kane has also made them like fade in between multiple different cover arts for each option.
Thus putting more effort into it than I've ever put into a YouTube thumbnail image for the Crate and Crowbar.
Yeah, this.
I slightly resent this.
Than we did.
Hey,
if you watch the Heat Signature one long enough, it's going to switch to a screenshot of the Adventure Time episode where they mention a fictional movie called Heat Signature.
In 12th place, Heat.
There it is.
Signature.
I misread that.
Yay.
I thought it said Hot Spectrum.
Hot Spectrum.
I can't read that from
In
here.
12th place.
Such a good game.
Hot Spectrum.
So sorry.
The
words are so
long-awaited follow-up to Pistol Poke.
Heat Signature has not dropped that many places since last year, the year that it
I
actually
think you
came
mean
out in.
Hot Signal.
Hot Spectrum has not dropped that many places since last year when it actually came out, which is great. I'm very pleased about that. Obviously, this community is biased, but I will take it.
In 11th place, Dead Cells. A very good game. Probably should be higher, to be
Yeah, I'm
honest.
surprised it's not in the top 10.
It
Yeah, me
came
too.
up for me on my Steam recommended list when I was doing a search for hidden object games. And I feel like that's not right.
There are so many objects hidden inside
there
those
are.
enemies.
Yeah.
The objects are called cells, and if you kill them...
I feel like I was hugely misled.
I've solved the puzzle! They're inside the bad guys.
Speedrun it.
Now we get on to the top 10 games of 2018. In 10th place, Yakuza 0. A pick Tom Senior would approve of if he were here. He's not. He's at the top of the spire right now. Lost.
He is.
As a
He's with a
slime.
fox.
Being extracted by animal care professionals.
He's been
And
mistaken
pointed
for a
in
fox.
the direction of Canary Wharf.
Yeah, given a check.
Did you mean the shard rather than the spire?
I did, yeah.
Because I was like all into the Slay the Spire references, but then I was like, I've been left behind here. There's a fox now in the spire?
In 9th place, BattleTech. I'm a bit of a BattleTech fan.
Yeah.
What?
That's the
Which
mech strategy game that I reviewed for you.
I read that. And proofread that.
Did you edit that with your hands or did you edit a pair with your face? Because I read your reviews intro.
Look, when a pear is ripe, you have to pounce.
Yeah.
Like, you do not get
Any
a second
seconds,
chance.
yeah.
Which is
any
very
second
relevant to
wasted.
the kinds of strategic opportunities that you reported in
Oh,
BattleTech
nice.
by harebrained schemes.
Oh, I thought you were going to be able to Celeste and the strawberries.
No,
This
yeah.
is the golden joysticks.
What?
We've got that creative architect.
I did write that script for the Golden Joysticks, Alex. It's not a coincidence that I can speak awards nonsense. In 8th place, it is indeed Celeste.
Cool.
Indeed.
In
I've heard
7th,
really good
Were we
things.
asking?
Shout out to Celeste for its accessibility options, because
Yeah.
I would not have bought it if it wasn't possible to like slow down time and turn off death.
things everyone wishes they could do. And on that note, number 7, it's Hitman 2, also known as Hitman 6.
Have
Isn't it
you-
also
Hitman 2
1
too?
as well?
No.
It contains Hitman 1.
It contains
Oh, yeah,
Hitman
true.
1, yeah, in the manner of Sonic and
So
And by
Hitman
Hitman 1, we
2,
mean Hitman like 19.
Open bracket, Hitman 1-1.
What do you even say?
Yeah.
Chris, have you done any elusive targets in this Hitman?
I have not even played this Hitman.
Okay. Because I have now...
Why did you call me out specifically on this?
Well, I remember with Hitman 1, we were all happily doing elusive targets, and then you failed one, and you were talking
like,
about
fuck this forever.
how much... Yeah. And
I fucked it forever so much I haven't played the sequel.
I'm right there where you were now, because I fucked the last one forever.
They don't let you do that in Hitman 1.
Sorry?
Sorry.
Was this a sex joke?
It was a sex.
Fuck
No,
a
that
man
totally went
forever.
past me. I was like, you can't fail them in Hitman 1? What are you talking about?
You can, just not like that.
It seems that Jean-Luc Picard's jokes work.
Sean Bean, I killed, but not in a way that was stylish, but not in a way that the game recognises as stylish.
Been in TNG.
No, he's in season 2 of Hitman.
Oh.
Bean, Earl Grey, hot.
Yeah.
Bean, Ned Stark, dead.
His body's poor applicant. Well, I guess I don't know what I expected.
In 6th place, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
That's a good game. That does have a transmogrify function.
It does.
I have now used. It was added in a patch.
Yeah.
I look fabulous now.
Unrelatedly.
And I still have good stats.
I haven't quite finished it yet, and it's really annoying because they've just fucked something up with the story in the DLC that I haven't played yet in a way that's pissed everybody in the world
Oh, yeah,
off.
yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's a slight spoiler, so I won't get into it. Needless to say, oh no, they did so well, and then they have beefed upon it.
But they've beefed in 2019.
Yes, they have.
So for the game of the year purposes, it's blameless.
This holds.
In 5th place, it's a game we haven't spoken about nearly enough. It's Slay the Spire.
If only someone would talk about Slay the Spire some more.
Yeah, exactly. I think it must be competing for a Spelunky/Dota award for most episodes mentioned in a year at least.
Has anyone complained about it?
No one's complained yet, so this is your chance.
They're all too busy playing Slay the Spire.
Indeed. In 4th place, Monster Hunter World. Another worthy choice. An excellent game where you do big flips, hit dinosaurs, and profit from the results.
It very much
summary.
faded. Like, it had its moment, it felt like, in The Office, at least, and then sort of just everyone moved on.
Oh, cowards.
But don't all things fade with time?
We just had other clothes to wear, Alex. Other monsters to slay.
It's the highest ranked game that I have not played in this thing, because the next 3 are all things I played and loved.
In 3rd place, it's Tom Francis's Game of the Year. Into the Breach.
Breach.
Into the Breach. The best game about pushing insects into a lake in 2018.
Yeah. If you push some insects into a lake and into the breach and you're not happy, I don't know what to tell you.
I feel like I
Gotta work on yourself.
Side right now.
You gotta stop reviewing games and work on yourself.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel so called out.
Bit of
Right, did you review Into the Breach?
a Randy Pitchfordian take there. You went for it. And in 2nd place, it's Return of the Obra Dinn. Here we go, Bradin.
The long-awaited follow-up to the Obra Dinn.
And to Obra Dinn Begins.
And I was like, the ship is great, but I want to know what happens like after it leaves port. I love exploring it. I love these characters, but I want to know, like, do they ever come into any kind of peril? Or are they just fine forever?
We all enjoyed the fact that the first game just gave us 60 happy sailors. And they're
all fine.
They competed in a dance competition as the underdogs. And
you had to sketch them all on deck and show, like, look, they're all happy.
Obra Dinn up to the streets. And then
up to the seas.
Yeah, up to the seas. And they got to the seas. What lay beyond that? Only seashell peril, unfortunately, and death.
It was a good game.
It was a good game. It was a good game. You think, is that person this person? And the game says,
no.
Yeah.
Their face is still blurry.
Wow, very different experience. You finished it yet, Alex?
No.
What was it like speedrunning it, Pip?
Oh, it was. It's very easy. I put all the
what's your
into place.
Time? What's the technical word for time?
Now look, let's not be measuring.
Speedrunning's not about time.
Speedrunning. It's more about the feeling of
having rushed yourself.
And of being slightly out of control as you press buttons and aren't quite sure if it's going to work or not. But then it does, and then you get a cup of tea slightly earlier than you thought you would. That's speedrunning, Alex. Awesome games done quick enough to go to bed a bit early.
That's it.
Yeah.
In first place, the Crate and Crowbar Community Game of the Year is Subnautica.
They copied us.
Yay.
They did, which means that we are
Well
aligned on
done.
this, because the only game that got 2 votes from me and Pip.
I feel like it was a bit stiffed in the IGFs. The IGFs is a very, very good list of nominees, but the Subnautica is
The phrase
not...
stiffed in the IGFs is one
Yeah,
to
my
live with.
tombstone.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I was not at all stiffed in the IGFs. But very well celebrating the IGFs. But the Subnautica only got honourable
Spent in the
mentions.
IGFs, if anything.
I don't know.
And everything else I like this year got
Okay.
something. Like, it was a really good list other than that.
Sorry, I'm just remembering the words you said and using them in a joke.
That's how speedrunning works.
Yes. A cup of tea.
Yeah, Subnautica got only honourable mentions, and I feel like I can see why, like, it's not Nuovo or whatever, but I feel like for the grand prize, it should have been a nominee.
Yeah, Subnautica is a very good game.
It's just, I almost wonder if it's too good. It's like, it's so accomplished and so polished and so, it works so well that it's almost like not indie anymore because it's
Yeah.
too good.
I was sat next to the guys from Unknown Worlds at the Golden Joysticks where they won 2 awards, and I knew they were going to win 2 awards because I was the director of that event, so I did know that. But I felt a bit weird sitting next to them, thinking, like, telling them how good I thought their game was, because I genuinely do think it's wonderful, and it's a public vote, the Joystick, so I had nothing to do with them winning 2 awards. It's just the fact that they made a really deserving game. But that sort of, like, slight feeling like you may have convinced someone that you've lured them into your house to give them prizes, which is like a stress dream only I have had.
Yeah, I'd love to be lured into a house and given prizes.
Yeah, I mean,
This is
for
how
all
Hansel
sentences,
and Gretel happened.
It is, yeah. I wanted to give a shout out at the bottom of this list actually to not just so there were a bunch of honourable mentions which were games that didn't make it quite, which there's too many to go into, but there is special considerations, which are games that only one person voted for. And above all of this, there are games that were that person's game of the year. Despite being the only person to put that in the position. So I'm going to read out those ones because I think they're a fun kind of list. We have Almanac of Girl Swamp War Territory. And I have no idea what this is, but must Google it immediately.
I feel like I might have made
We
it
have
up.
Fallen London, which is in,
Did the ranking just change? Sorry.
Yes, I think the ranking did just change. Kingdom Hearts
it
2.
refreshes and moves them around in a...
It can't do, because 2018 is over, Pip.
Yeah,
It has to have, we need
but,
at least this.
They move around. Like, I think the bottom ones do.
the whole
Watch it
ranking is a
for a while.
farce.
Let me just get through this, then we can close this cursed window. Sid Meier's, it's happened again!
They've all changed. All the games of 2018 have changed.
We've got to do 2018 again, everybody. Sorry. Back to the start.
Oh God, no. Don't make me go back.
We lost the save. Sid Meier's Civilization 6 Rise and Fall. Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. I just find this interesting in terms of things people played last year and loved. Final Fantasy 15 Episode Ignis. Fuck knows what that means. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate for the Monster Hunter fan.
That's the Cognoscentes one.
Yeah. It's your word of the day, isn't it? You said it twice.
No.
You did. You started saying it earlier.
What is your word of the day, then?
Cognoscenti, apparently. Isn't it?
Yeah, but if you
If
said
it's
that
not
it
that,
wasn't,
you've got to provide an alternative explanation.
The headphones.
Could you see headphones?
Yeah.
Right. You panicked.
The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind.
Wow.
Sound
Someone
choice.
just now discovering that?
Game of the Year. Dusk.
That's,
Gran
that was
Turismo Sport. Nier Automata.
Can you see in that list, Splay the Sire? Because I know at least one person submitted that.
I
don't know
cannot, but it might arbitrarily refresh at any time.
I think it's the
StarCraft
same
Remastered.
game, but
Oh,
just
it's
in a
happened
different
again. I think it might be pulling.
It's longer or shorter.
I think it might be pulling from a total list that we can't see. That's what might be happening. Unexplored, Dwarf Fortress, because of course, Iconoclasts, Pyre, and Tacoma. There you go. Indeed.
Thanks, Kane.
Thanks, Kane, for all of the work you did to
good
arrange
job.
the Game of the Year, Community Game of the Year. And thanks,
Very
of
well
course,
done.
to our amazing Discord community who continue to be amazing and insightful regardless of the amount of effort we do or don't put into this podcast.
How wowed we are by something really simple like a page refresher.
Ooh. Well,
And the,
Indeed.
the
We
Game
are
of the
in
Year-
your zoo, not the other way around.
The Game of the Year channel in our Discord also contains links to people writing about their Games of the Year. So there's a lot of people who have written up like why their Game of the Year is their Game of the Year.
Links to our Discord will be in the show notes, which you very much should be a part of because it's
a bit presumptuous.
What? Alexander Wiltshire. Don't come at me in my place of power, the show notes. My domain. I will write you out of the show notes, Alex. You know I can.
Oh.
Or
Chris and Tom this week discuss.
Or is it Wes now?
Later, a special guest shows
Don't
up.
make me Wes.
You're Wes
Even
now.
Wes has disowned the
Wes is Gus. You are Wes. Our final question.
I'm gonna go.
Okay. No, Pip, actually, you're
this
really
podcast.
good for this one.
Oh no. Okay.
It's a relatively serious thing, and I think you'd be good for it.
Nudge up, Alex.
Tessa writes, "Hi, Crates. And I appreciate this is a question we received a little while ago because we didn't do questions in the Game of the Year pod, but I want to get to it. This past week, I've been hit like an unexpected brick by my yearly bout of seasonal affective disorder, and are by turns terrified and miserable. Do you have any recommendations for low-key, hopeful, cheery-uppy games, ideally ones without too much death or existentiality? Thanks very much, Tessa."
Tiny Bird Garden Deluxe.
Oh,
See, I told you Pip would be good for this.
It's more on the idle game end of the spectrum, but it's lovely to just have open in a window. It's a slightly expanded version of a mobile game of the same name. The mobile one's free to play. I think the desktop one is about $5, and all you're doing is you are putting out some seed and some toys and attracting lovely birds to your garden, and they'll say lovely little things like, "I just want to be a good bird." And like, so it's just really cute and uplifting, and you can put little hats on them. It's so good. And give them treats. Like it. Really like it. And I just think whatever else you're doing, it's quite nice to just pop back every now and again and check in on them.
I was going to suggest Slime Rancher for this.
Yes, also good. Sorry, that was creepy.
Yeah, because it's another Pip favourite. Pip knows far
Can
more about it than I do.
you goop people in Slime Rancher?
You can, but you can't lick them.
So it's 50%
You
of the
can
way there.
suck slimes into a little vacuum cleaner.
Is that called licking?
No.
It's important what it's called.
Tom's now quite into licking slimes and gooping.
As long as it's zero cost. I'm not going to pay for licking.
Is this a video game? Is this
He's a Tumblr
nerd
boy, not a
thing?
Patreon boy.
Oh, God. Right, I'm not engaging with that.
Okay. Anyone else's suggestions for lovely, kind of light games that don't have too much darkness in them?
It's not mega positive, and obviously there's a dark side to it, but I did discover Candy Crush over the break. Because I have an iPad, and I was just like watching TV, and there's a lot of stuff on TV that's not entirely worthy of my attention, but I kind of like want to consume it anyway. And so playing some kind of game that also doesn't require my entire attention is a good fit. And I didn't think of Candy Crush, I thought Bejeweled, like there must be a great new version of Bejeweled that works. And there is a version of Bejeweled where they just looked at Candy Crush and like, I don't know that chronology for sure, but I'm pretty sure they looked at Candy Crush and just like, let's do everything they're doing, but not quite as well. And so then I just installed Candy Crush and was like, oh, Candy Crush is actually pretty fucking good. It's just a really good take on the match 3 thing. And I've been amazed at how little it has tried to persuade me to spend any money at all. I'm literally just playing the free version. It has a bunch of things to engage with that I don't have to engage with. It just pops up and says like, would you like to do this thing? And I'm like, no, I just want to play the next level. And then it's like, I can pay for all these boosters, but the levels, you can pass them pretty easily. And then it's, did you get 3 stars or did you get 1 star or 2 stars or whatever? And if I don't get 3 stars, I have to replay it. And when I do that, and it's like, oh, you could easily afford boosters with this, not even with paying any money, but just with the in-game currency you've amassed. I'm like, no, because I want to know, can I do it? Like, can I get the 3 stars just by actually playing well? And I don't want any boosters at all. And even given that, it actually just gives me a bunch of boosters anyway, because it's like, oh, it's fucking Christmas, and so you get 19 million amazing things. And, I don't mind that so much, but I'm certainly not going to pay for anything that they ever give me. So it's surprising how much it's designed not to persuade me to spend any money. But I appreciate it. It's just like a really relaxing game that just always has something more for you to do, that's always satisfying. It's always telling you, yes, you did great. And it's just, it's match 3 with a bunch of extra stuff put on it, and it just feels really good to play.
Gardenscapes is my version of that. I think it sounds from what you're saying, I haven't played Candy Crush in a while, but I think Gardenscapes is slightly more trying to persuade you to spend a bit, but it also is, generous enough that I don't. So, and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. So I have spent a lot of time on that game. And also hidden object games. I really like them for when I'm in a not fun place, because it's just like, you can actually just tidy objects into the right places and be told, well done, like that.
That is all of the questions we've got time for this evening.
Oh, thank goodness, my bum's fallen asleep.
My back's gone.
I brought this on myself.
You can have one of those two components of your body, but not both.
I'm sorry, Alex.
Not at all.
If you would like to send us a question for a future episode of the Crate and Crowbar, you can do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can follow us and interact with us on Twitter at Crate and Crowbar. Thanks, as ever, to our Patreon backers who support this podcast and its spin-offs. You can find out more about supporting the podcast on our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar. We've mentioned our Discord community a bunch of times already, but it's very good. And you can find out more about it on our website, which is at crateandcrowbar.com. There's a link to Discord in the nav bar, as the kids are calling it. We have a YouTube channel where we upload still images accompanied by 2.5 hours of talking.
I don't understand YouTube.
No. Once upon a time we did some Bloodborne videos and maybe that'll happen again. But in the meantime, you can find that at youtube.com/Crate and Crowbar. If you'd like to follow us individually, you can do that if you like. I'm on Twitter at CThurston, that's CTHURSTEN.
I, Tom, am at Pentadact, PENTADST.
I, Alex, am at Rotational, ROTATIONAL.
I was going to say that I was pip.net, but that's not
Pipnet.
true.
Who wants to go to Pipnet?
Pip.net. Lover.net.
PIP.net.
Oh, do you know what I love? Lover.biz. Pip.biz.
And it's pip.biz. You've missed your window.
TLAs are expensive.
Live with that.
There's too much nonsense too quickly. It's goodbye from all of us.
Goodbye.
And thanks
Bye.
for listening, everybody.
Everybody.
Sorry.